Bleach. Studying medicine can't save the spirit world. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyright or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 201 Green Version Instant Cokes Kachika Hibaiki. Upon hearing this name, Makoto Senju's expression could not help but be slightly startled. Makoto Senju had heard this name several times when he visited the Kachika family many times before, but this was undoubtedly the first time he met Kachika Hibaiki. As the son-in-law of Kachika Jinrin, Kachika Hibaiki was once the third seat of the former 6th Division, and was later specially recruited to the 1st Division to lead the Special Forces squad. However, Makoto Senju combined his memories of his previous life and the information provided by Ulu's Hilyu, and he knew very well that Captain General Yamamoto kept Kachika Hibaiki under his own nose. In addition to intentionally training Kachika Hibaiki, it was also to be able to monitor Kachika Hibaiki's movements at all times. Therefore, when facing different enemies, Kachika Hibaiki's zanpakutō Muramasa is completely at two different levels of extremes. Muramasa. Make the enemy's zanpakutō not controlled by the master. Shikai can control the enemy's zanpakutō to attack the target designated by Muramasa. Bankai can even directly make the enemy's zanpakutō rebel against the master, and appear in a physical form to attack the original master. When facing enemies such as hollows and queensies, Kachika Hibaiki is almost equivalent to having no zanpakutō ability. But once the opponent is replaced by a Shinigami with a zanpakutō, Kachika Hibaiki is almost an unsolvable rogue, and can directly induce the opponent's zanpakutō to rebel in front of the Shinigami. In other words, Kachika Hibaiki's zanpakutō ability is completely the type of outside battle. Inside battle, I can't fight hollows, but I can kill people at home. Fortunately, Kachika Hibaiki is the son-in-law of the Kachika family, otherwise, relying solely on the hidden dangers hidden in Kachika Hibaiki's zanpakutō ability, the central 46th room would have destroyed Kachika Hibaiki long ago. However, after meeting Kachika Hibaiki for the first time, Senju Makoto could feel that Kachika Hibaiki's personality was still quite cheerful and enthusiastic, which was completely different from Kachika Byukai's cold and arrogant appearance. Perhaps, this was also because Kachika Hibaiki understood that he was just a son-in-law, and he was already the son-in-law of one of the four nobles in Soul Society. On the road of being a son-in-law, Kachika Hibaiki has undoubtedly reached the end. If he wants to go one step further in status, or perform the Dragon King plot, unless the Soul King revives and personally accepts Kachika Hibaiki as a son-in-law, it is almost impossible. Therefore, in addition to relying on the Kachika family, Kachika Hibaiki does not have to bear a lot of responsibilities like Kachika Byukai, so he naturally has no burden. And this time, it was also a rare vacation for Kachika Hibaiki in the Kachika courtyard. Hearing about Senju Makoto's visit, he came over to say hello to express his gratitude to Senju Makoto for his kindness to Kachika Sojin. Afterwards, Kachika Hibaiki greeted Makoto Senju enthusiastically, and told Makoto Senju to stay in the Kachika courtyard with peace of mind, and then left the space to Makoto Senju and Byukai Kachika again. Senior Hibaiki is really a warm and good character. Makoto Senju sighed with some surprise. However, Byukai Kachika shook his head and said in a serious tone, Mr. Hibaiki's character is indeed good, but sometimes he is too naive and extreme, which is not a good thing for him who holds a dangerous zanpakutō, especially in a noble family like the Kachika family. Makoto Senju did not make any comments on the internal affairs of the Kachika family. Even if Makoto Senju clearly remembered the original trajectory, Kachika Hibaiki did go down the wrong path because of his naivety and extremism. In the following days, Makoto Senju really did what he said, and resolutely did not do anything to step into the dangerous Unohana courtyard alone, and his meeting with Unohana teacher was limited to being in the public eye. But even so, Senju Makoto always felt frightened every time he met Unohana Retsu. However, Senju Makoto believed that time would be the best medicine for everything. As the saying goes, a long separation is better than a newlywed marriage. One day, Unohana teacher will definitely miss the important person who ran away from home and choose to forgive him. More importantly, Senju Makoto was also worried that if he rashly returned to Unohana courtyard, he would be forced by Unohana teacher to do shameful actions. That's damn. Therefore, Senju Makoto was busy as usual during the rest of the time, and temporarily lived in Kachika courtyard at night. In this way, it was a little more convenient, that is, it was much more convenient for Senju Makatao and Seireitei to practice instant boom. However, even for Seireitei, it is not something that can be done in a short time to truly master instant boom. Because that is almost equivalent to opening up a new way of fighting, not only in various techniques, but also the spirit body also needs to adapt to instant boom a little bit. Of course, Senju Makatao did not tell Seireitei that instant boom was a combat technique created by Shoin Yorishi, but used his own research on Kido and medical skills, and an idea that came from his repeated contact with Hakuba and Kiden as an excuse to evade the question. Therefore, as Seireitei gradually got started in instant boom, it was almost impossible to conceal the admiration of Senju Makatao, which also made Senju Makatao feel a little ashamed. Taking advantage of Master Yorishi and tricking Master Yorishi's little followers into worshipping him, no matter how you think about it, this is not the behavior of a gentleman. However, Shoin Yorishi is still alive in the world, so he should not mind such trivial matters. The only thing that bothered Senju Makatao is that his talent in Hakuba and Kiden seemed to be average, and it was a long way to go to cultivate the pure instant boom. Relatively speaking, Senju Makatao replaced the highly destructive Kiden with the vibrant Kido, and succeeded in the experiment at one time. Senju Makatao has probably already imagined what it would be like once he has completed his unique instant boom. By then, Shifen Yuan Yorishi's instant boom attribute will be lightning, Seireitei's instant boom attribute will be strong wind, and Senju Makatao's will be a green light, which will make both enemies and friends feel a little flustered. However, this is undoubtedly the best way to quickly complete Senju Makatao's melee combat ability. With the speed and explosive power blessed by instant boom, he can reversely learn to easily meet the requirements of various spirits. Forget it, let's find a way to change the color later. Practicality is the top priority, otherwise there will be no chance to beat Unohana teacher in close combat in this life. In the end, Senju Makatao still convinced himself and really began to embark on the path of developing and practicing the green version of instant boom. And every night when it was quiet, Unohana Retsu, who was used to the presence of Senju Makatao, did feel a little uncomfortable, and was not aware that his own disciple had secretly cheated on him and was ready to surprise him. Chapter 202. Hard-hearted Senju Makatao, updated. The courtyard was not like before, without the presence of Makatao Senju. Unohana Retsu might not feel a strong loneliness, but he was quite uncomfortable. But Unohana Retsu did not kill time by arranging flowers, tasting tea, studying Kido, etc., as he had done in the past 100 or 1,000 years. On the contrary, since when Unohana Retsu was arranging flowers, tasting tea, and studying Kido, the figure of Makatao Senju would always appear in his mind subconsciously. Especially when Makatao Senju did not dare to return to the Unohana courtyard during this period, Unohana Retsu felt it more and more obviously. Therefore, Unohana Retsu was no longer in the mood to arrange flowers and taste tea, and unknowingly picked up the picture album that was originally used as the evidence of Makatao Senju. When Unohana Retsu saw the contents of this picture album for the first time, he was furious and wanted to see which bold guy dared to slander the image of Unohana Retsu. After verifying that the album hidden in Senju Makatao's office was indeed Senju Makatao's work, Unohana Retsu gave up the idea of cutting the other party into pieces, and planned to give him a small punishment. However, the development of things naturally exceeded Unohana Retsu's expectations. In the end, it was Senju Makatao who hardened to express his dissatisfaction by not returning to the courtyard. Senju Makatao's first resistance made Unohana Retsu inexplicably feel that there seemed to be a generation gap between him and Senju Makatao, and he seemed to have never tried to truly understand and accept Senju Makatao's preferences. In the past, it was Senju Makatao who almost accommodated his hobbies in everything. This made Unohana Retsu, who was in deep thought, hold the album in both hands. His brows tightened and loosened and tightened, and then couldn't help but sigh slightly. Perhaps, I'm really too harsh on Makatao-kun. Even his preferences are excessively interfered with, which obviously exceeds the scope of being a teacher. Then, Unohana Retsu hesitated for a moment and chose to slowly open the album in his arms. Unlike when she'd first found the album, Unohana Retsu simply flipped through it. This time, Unohana Retsu chose to browse through it page by page. As Unohana Retsu looked at the different postures and movements in the album, even the expressions were vivid, exuding the sweet, charming, seductive and other styles of herself, and Unohana Retsu's face unconsciously became a little rosy. After a long time, Unohana Retsu, with red cheeks, closed the album in her arms, then reached out and touched her face, and couldn't help sipping Cheng, you are so bold. I'm a woman over 1,000 years old. Can I really do those shameful movements? And those shameful movements, will a woman like me who is over 1,000 years old really look good? It's hard to understand. Why would Cheng like these strange and shameful postures and movements that don't show any dignity and elegance? When Unohana had this idea in his mind, his feet, which were originally kneeling, unconsciously tried to move to the sides, imitating a duck-sitting position with full cute elements. But the next moment, Unohana suddenly stood up, as if everything just now was just an illusion. As for the picture album, it was sealed in a secret place again by Unohana. There is no doubt that the picture album is something that Unohana absolutely cannot disclose. In other words, the painter is Senju Cheng. If it were another death god, Unohana would have sent the other party to the funeral home with a false illness. Senju Cheng is still unaware of Unohana subtle change of mind. Instead, every time he meets Unohana, he feels guilty and almost avoids Unohana. During this period, the Seireitei also gradually arranged everything about Senju Cheng's intermediate noble. In addition to truly owning a piece of land and courtyard belonging to the Senju family in Seireitei, Senju Cheng also gave a large number of things related to the symbols and expenses of intermediate noble. Among them, the Seireitei referred to Senju Cheng's opinion and also formulated the noble family emblem belonging to the Senju family. The pattern and appearance are highly similar to Senju Cheng's previous flower arrangement work Forest Enduring. Since then, Senju Cheng, as a noble, can also choose to tattoo his noble family emblem on his death suit to show his noble status. However, Senju Cheng did not deliberately do such boring things. He usually wore ordinary death suits and did not change his attitude towards his teammates. The only thing was that when Senju Cheng followed the rules of the Seireitei to hold the cumbersome noble ceremony, it became the most likely thing since the hollow incident of the Seireitei. The Shifen Yuan family, the Cheng-ge family, the Omida family and other nobles sent gifts. Many teams also congratulated in the name of the team, which can be said to have given Senju Cheng enough face. In addition, there were hundreds of female Shinigami coming to the Strategy Senju Doctor Special Communication Association, which made Senju Cheng always feel that he was not preparing to become a noble, but preparing to open a beauty salon. After the noble ceremony, Senju Cheng did not really move to his own courtyard, but continued to choose to live temporarily in the Cheng-ge courtyard. It must be said that the living environment arranged by Cheng-ge Byakuya for Senju Cheng is not bad, and he even specially arranged 2 maids to take care of Senju Cheng's daily life. This made Senju Cheng occasionally have the idea of I'm happy here, I don't want to spend money. After all, with the background of the Cheng-ge family, at least in terms of various living expenses, it is really impeccable in all senses. Until one night, Senju Cheng, who had already fallen asleep, suddenly heard a series of somewhat confused walking back and forth in the Cheng-ge courtyard, which always kept quiet at night. This is almost impossible for the Cheng-ge family, whose rules are extremely strict. Senju Cheng opened his eyes, instinctively sensed the spiritual pressure around him, and asked, "What happened?" As the object of Senju Cheng's questioning, the phantom of He was lying on the side of Senju Cheng, supporting his head with one hand, but his tone was a little more strange than usual. He was slandered and framed by his colleagues during the mission. Given the status of the Cheng-ge family, it was only a minor matter. Even if it cannot be clarified, it can be dealt with calmly. But Cheng-ge's thoughts seemed to be a bit too extreme. When he was imprisoned in the 1st Division, he actually chose to use his zanpakutō to escape from prison and killed 3 1st Division Shinigami. Now he has just escaped back to the Cheng-ge family and tried to escape from the Seireitei with the help of the Cheng-ge family's world gate. Suddenly, He paused and continued. They have already started fighting. Chapter 203 Zanpakutō. Muramasa. As He finished speaking, Senju Cheng sensed the spiritual pressure of Cheng-ge coming from the other side of the Cheng-ge family. Senju Cheng hesitated for a moment, picked up the neatly folded death suit on the tatami and put it on his body, and appeared on the roof in a flash. As a guest of the Cheng-ge family, he had been living in the Cheng-ge courtyard for such a long time. Now that the Cheng-ge family had encountered an accident, even if it was not Senju Cheng's turn to take action, Senju Cheng, as a doctor, had to rush to the scene to provide medical support. As Senju Cheng hurried on his way with instant steps, he soon arrived at a small square on the other side of the Cheng-ge family. This was also the place where the Cheng-ge family usually placed the world gate. At this moment, Senju Cheng stood on the roof, looking down. Seireitei was no longer as cheerful as before, but his expression was full of distortion and anger. In front of Seireitei, Sojin and Byakuya, who had lost their right arms, blocked the world gate. There were more than 10 servants holding restraining sticks that could suppress spiritual pressure, vaguely surrounding Seireitei, and 2 servants fell at his feet. Sojin's face showed a rare anger, and he shouted, "Hibiki, are you crazy? Do you know what you are doing? Put down your zanpakutō." Hibiki grabbed his face with one hand and laughed a little crazy. "Aha, Sojin, don't be hypocritical here, you bastards don't think I'm innocent at all, right?" Byakuya said. "No, both father and grandfather are working hard for your sake." "What a joke. With the power and status of the Seireitei family, if you really want to save me, do you need to go through so much trouble?" Hibiki asked back. "Even if the Seireitei family is one of the 4 great nobles, they will never exercise their private rights. This will be a disgrace to the Seireitei family's honor." "Shut up." Before Byakuya could finish, Hibiki suddenly interrupted him, his expression becoming more and more distorted. "The Seireitei's honor, aha, it's because of this kind of nonsense that they let me die without saving me, and let me be imprisoned and humiliated and laughed at by the guys who framed me. Don't be ridiculous. What Seireitei, what honor, it's really ridiculous." Hearing this, Senju Cheng couldn't help but frown slightly. Originally, Senju Cheng was still wondering if there was any misunderstanding, but Hibiki's distorted expression showed that Hibiki's will was almost completely blinded and swallowed by hatred. More importantly, the source of Hibiki's hatred is really a bit ridiculous. Just because he thinks that the people of the Seireitei family didn't try their best to rescue him, so he chose to hate. Is this guy naive, or is he completely self-centered? He had no idea how much trouble his actions had brought to the Seireitei family. Instead, he only thought about how the Seireitei family had not rescued him immediately. However, despite this, Sojin still seemed to have not given up trying to comfort Hibiki, saying, "Hibiki, calm down a little. Everything can still be salvaged." "Salvaged? How?" Hibiki said with a crazy and disdainful smile. "I have personally killed those guys, right in the barracks of the 1st Division, and smeared their bones, flesh, and brains on the wall." "What?" As soon as these words came out, both Sojin and Byakuya were shocked. Killing colleagues in the barracks of the 1st Division, that is, Captain General Yamamoto, was definitely a provocation to the GOTY 13 and Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni. Aha, it's so refreshing. I don't need to care about the etiquette and honor of the Seireitei family. If anyone dares to frame me, I will tear him into pieces with the power in my hands," Hibiki said with a big laugh, and glanced at the gate behind Sojin, saying, "Sojin, put away your disgusting face and get out of here, otherwise don't blame me for being rude." Sojin pulled out his zanpakutō with his left hand and said, "Hibiki, I will never allow you to escape from the Seireitei even if I bet on the honor of the Seireitei family." "You? Sojin? Not to mention that you lost your right arm, even if you were in your prime, you would not be my opponent." Hibiki became more and more angry as he spoke, as if he had completely vented the anger and resentment that had been hidden deep in his heart for decades. "But just because you are the blood of the Seireitei family, you're obviously inferior to me, but you can be the vice captain of the 6th Division, and I can only be the 3rd seat. Then they were worried that I would threaten your position, so they transferred me to the 1st Division. Haha, Sojin, all this is because of you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be transferred to the 1st Division, I wouldn't be framed, and I wouldn't be forced to kill my colleagues. Now I have to choose to leave the Seireitei." When Byakuya heard these words, his eyes obviously became unfriendly and he scolded. "Hibiki, obviously all these are just caused by your narrow-mindedness and naive ideas. You were transferred to the 1st Division entirely because of Captain-in-Chief Yamamoto, hoping that you can gain more experience and growth. However, at this point, how could Hibiki still listen to what Sojin and Byakuya said? His eyes became more and more unfriendly and twisted. "Wow, what a bunch of hypocritical and disgusting faces. I'll ask you one last time, get out of the way, I'm going to use the gate of penetration. Hiroki, don't make the same mistake again and again, put down your weapon, and when father comes back, I'll take you to apologize to Captain General Yamamoto, everything may not be irreparable." Sojin said sadly. It seems the negotiation failed, Sojin. Then let me see if you can still hold your sword tightly after losing your right arm. Kachika Hiraiki said with murderous eyes. Whisper, Muramasa. The next moment, as Kachika Hiraiki's voice fell, a man wearing a white-waisted robe, looking like an aristocratic dress, but with a very cold and terrifying facial features and extremely long fingernails, appeared beside Kachika Hiraiki. Kachika Sojin and Kachika Byakuya knew everything about Kachika Hiraiki's ability, and they knew very well that the cold man was the embodiment of Kachika Hiraiki's zanpakutō Muramasa. Unlike other normal zanpakutō, Kachika Hiraiki's zanpakutō Muramasa is special and strange. The sword soul can actually walk in the outside world and use its power in a physical form. As if sensing Kachika Hiraiki's anger, after Muramasa appeared, the 10 fingers with extremely long nails were raised and pointed at Kachika Sojin and Kachika Byakuya. Chapter 204 Muramasa's ability. Then, a wave of lavender spiritual pressure spread out from the 10 fingers of Muramasa. The next moment, Kachika Sojin and Kachika Byakuya felt that the zanpakutō in their hands were constantly trembling, and the sharp blade seemed to want to turn and aim at the master. Even Senju Cheng, who was the farthest away, also felt that the zanpakutō in Romancho in the scabbard seemed to be moving. Indiscriminate interference with zanpakutō. Realizing that Kachika Hiraiki had completely stood on the opposite side, Kachika Sojin no longer hesitated, desperately controlled the zanpakutō in his hand, and ordered loudly. Warn the Seireitei and arrest the criminal Kachika Hiraiki immediately. Yes. Immediately, the more than 10 servants holding restraint sticks surrounded Kachika Hiraiki without hesitation, trying to restrain Kachika Hiraiki. Don't even think about getting close to my master. However, even though these servants did not have zanpakutō, they were not affected by the ability of zanpakutō Muramasa. However, as the materialized zanpakutō Muramasa took action himself, the combat power he showed was no less than that of an ordinary captain, and he crushed the siege of the servants. As zanpakutō Muramasa half knelt to report to Kachika Hiraiki, the more than 10 servants had already fallen to the ground. Kachika Hiraiki's face showed madness and pleasure, and then he stepped on the servants one by one, and walked towards Kachika Sojin and Kachika Byakuya. Then, Kachika Hiraiki picked up a restrained stick and directly inserted it into Kachika Sojin's neck, and then fixed Kachika Sojin on the edge of the gate, saying with satisfaction, Sojin, have you seen my power? That is a great power. Any Shinigami or zanpakutō will not have the slightest resistance in front of me. Under Kachika Hiraiki's interference, Kachika Sojin, who was barely able to control his zanpakutō with one hand, was directly stacked into his body by the zanpakutō in his hand. But even so, Kachika Sojin still looked at Kachika Hiraiki without the slightest fear and said, Don't use arrogance to cover up your inner fear and panic, Hiraiki. If you weren't afraid of the power of your father and Captain General Yamamoto, how could you have thought of escaping from the Seireitei with the help of the Gate of Transmigration? Instantly, Kachika Hiraiki seemed to have been stabbed at something, and his expression was annoyed and angry. Fear, that's right, fear. No matter how much Kachika Hiraiki deceived himself, he still inevitably felt fear for Kachika Jinrin and Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni, whom he had met many times in the past. No, I have already mastered Bankai, and I am completely on the same level as those so-called captains. What's more, do they really think that their decayed and aging bodies can be my opponents? Kachika Hiraiki roared at Kachika Sojin angrily. Kachika Byakuya, holding his zanpakutō tightly in both hands, said with disdain and ridicule. In that case, then you can go find Captain Yamamoto and Grandpa. However, as Kachika Hiraiki's eyes turned, his zanpakutō Muramasa slapped Kachika Byakuya, and directly knocked him out. Byakuya, have you forgotten the teachings of the Kachika family in the past? When the elders are talking, you are not the junior who is qualified to speak. At this time, Byakuya was obviously tough enough. Even though he was knocked to the ground and rolled several times, he still questioned stubbornly. Don't you dare to look directly at the fear in your heart, Hiraiki. This also completely angered Kachika Hiraiki, and he ordered his zanpakutō Muramasa. Killed him. Yes, master. Muramasa did not hesitate at all. He appeared in front of Kachika Byakuya in a flash, and the extremely long nails on his raised palm were like sharp blades and slashed towards Kachika Byakuya's neck. At this moment, Makoto Senju, who could no longer hold back, stood in front of Byakuya Kachika, and drew out his zanpakutō, all seeing to meet Muramasa's palm. Ding! The collision of the two made a sharp and crisp sound. Then, Makoto Senju turned his head to look at Byakuya Kachika, who was still tightly controlling his zanpakutō with both hands, and said helplessly, "Byakuya, you look too embarrassed, aren't you?" However, Muramasa obviously would not give Makoto Senju and Byakuya Kachika a chance to communicate slowly, and once again rushed towards Makoto Senju. His hands turned into after images and attacked Makoto Senju. "Sorry, I'm not good at this kind of battle," Makoto Senju said, and of course he would not be so stupid as to fight passionately with the opponent of the image. And as Makoto Senju finished speaking, zanpakutō, all-seeing, was directly released. A large amount of green grass spread rapidly, and a large number of giant trees blocked Muramasa's way. At this moment, the anxious voice of Kachika Byakuya sounded behind Senju Makoto, saying, "Makoto-kun, don't release your zanpakutō." Muramasa's ability is to communicate directly with the other zanpakutō themselves and give hints, which will distort the zanpakutō's instinct to betray its master to a certain extent. Once the zanpakutō is released, it will be easier for Muramasa to find the location of the zanpakutō sword spirit and communicate with it. Hearing this, Senju Makoto subconsciously looked at the shadow of Shinigami beside him. As if sensing Senju Makoto's gaze, Shinigami's lovely eyes blinked and spoke with full energy. "Master Cheng-ge, don't worry, how could Cheng-ge betray you? Fight, fight." Look, just now Cheng-ge just moved unconsciously for a while and then stopped moving. This completely shows that Cheng-ge will not be attracted by other men except Master Cheng-ge. However, Senju Makoto has always had one advantage, that is, he listens to advice. Of course, he didn't listen to the nonsense of Senbon Bancho, an unreliable lily who was afraid of a chaotic battle, but listened to the advice of others. Then, Senju Makoto did not hesitate to release Senbon Bancho, grabbed Kachika Byakuya behind him with one hand, and planned to take Kachika Byakuya away from here first. "Makoto, wait a minute." At this time, Kachika Byakuya turned his head and stared at Senju Makoto, saying loudly, "If Makoto leaves like this, it doesn't matter if Sojin is killed because of this." Kachika Byakuya was the first to be angered when he heard this, and shouted, "Byakuya, what do you want to do?" "It's very simple." Kachika Byakuya's palm opened and closed in front of his eyes, as if trying to hold something, and then said, "I'm disgusted with this Seireitei, disgusted with this Gotti 13, and I have had enough of the so-called nobles." Chapter 205. Rebellion of all things. "So, I plan to leave the Seireitei and go to the human world. But what the brat Byakuya said is right. The threat of Captain General Yamamoto cannot be ignored. The spiritual pressure alone is enough to make it difficult for people to breathe," Kachika Byakuya said with a somewhat ugly expression. "So?" asked Senju Makoto. "So, I need a little bargaining chip in my hand, a bargaining chip that can make Captain General Yamamoto hesitate and not chase me personally," Kachika Byakuya said. Senju Makoto was slightly startled, vaguely aware of something wrong, and pointed at himself and asked, "Are you planning to use me as a bargaining chip? In terms of value and status, I'm afraid I'm far inferior to Byakuya." "That's right." Kachika Byakuya was not at all timid, and said, "If you need a hostage, I'll be your hostage." Kachika Byakuya shook his head, staring at Senju Makoto with a burning gaze, and said, "It's true that Byakuya is the heir of the four great nobles, but in the eyes of Captain General Yamamoto, Byakuya's status cannot be compared with Makoto-kun." Makoto Senju. Subconsciously, Makoto Senju recalled Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni, whom he had only met twice. However, Makoto Senju did not feel any special care and attention from Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni. Every time, in addition to majesty, Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni's face was full of kindness. However, as a member of the special forces of the first team, Kachika Byakuya obviously knew something. Kachika Byakuya continued to stare at Makoto Senju and said, "What's more, as a doctor, Makoto-kun is naturally much less dangerous than Byakuya, the heir of the Kachika family who has been trained since childhood." After a pause, Kachika Byakuya clamped the restrained stick on Kachika Sojin's neck and increased the force again, then casually pulled out the zanpakutō that was inserted into Kachika Sojin's chest, and stabbed it in with the backhand, saying, "Makoto-kun, you are so gentle and kind, you shouldn't watch Kachika Sojin die like this without saving him, right?" Senju Makoto. "Good guy, Kachika Byakuya actually knows how to kidnap me morally. But, doesn't Kachika Byakuya know that as long as I have no morals, it is impossible to kidnap me? The only thing that makes Senju Makoto feel helpless is that his image and temperament look so harmless. Thinking of this, Senju can't help but look at Kachiki Sojin with a gentle and somewhat melancholy look. Makoto-kun, don't worry about me, Kachiki Sojin spoke with difficulty. Senju heard this and couldn't help but reply in his heart subconsciously. I'm sorry, Sojin, I really don't want to care about you in this matter. Although Senju is a very kind person, he can't sacrifice himself for Kachiki Sojin. At least for the time being, in Senju mind, Kachiki Sojin's importance is far from this level. Even if Kachiki Sojin really died, at most Senju would cry louder at the time to express his feelings. However, before Kachiki Sojin could finish his words, Kachiki Hiraiki violently interrupted him. Puff. Another knife stabbed in. Suddenly, the blood that Kachiki Sojin had just recovered from his recovery was splattered high. Seeing this, Kachiki was so angry that his eyes turned red. Asshole, stop it. However, Kachiki was obviously having trouble controlling the zanpakutō in his hand, let alone fighting Kachiki Hiraiki. Just as Senju was about to take Kachiki away with a sad face, Muramasa, who had been motionless, suddenly spoke. So that's it. The consciousness of the sword spirit actually ran outside the inner space. No wonder I couldn't find the location for a long time. In an instant, Senju realized that something was wrong and turned his head suddenly to look at Senbon Bancho on his shoulder. However, the all-seeing was no longer as lively as before. Instead, it looked at Muramasa with a somewhat distracted look. Muramasa's mouth opened and closed slightly, as if he was silently communicating with the all-seeing through Senju. In less than a breath, the all-seeing showed a few traces of rare anger on its face, and then it suddenly turned around and bit Senju's ear with its mouth wide open. However, the all-seeing was only a shadow composed of the spiritual pressure fluctuations emitted by the spirit, and that bite went straight through Senju. Suddenly, the all-seeing looked even more angry. Seeing this, Senju realized that Muramasa might have begun to have some influence on the all-seeing, and hurriedly said, "Hey, all-seeing, wake up." However, the all-seeing only looked at Senju angrily, and then the shadow image disappeared directly. The next moment, the zanpakutō that Senju had retracted from his waist suddenly burst into a burst of green light, and then it was pulled out directly and landed beside Muramasa. Suddenly, the image of Senbon, which was almost exactly the same as that in the inner world, appeared in the outside world, and Senbon still appeared in a physical form. Senju's face was black on the spot. Is this what Senbon promised to do? Will never betray me? What else will not be seduced by other men besides me? Muramasa's mouth was only opened for a few seconds, and Senbon, this idiot, couldn't stand it and but raged on the spot. Senju tried hard to suppress his anger, and said in a gentle tone. If you don't come back to me obediently within 3 breaths, don't blame me. Lululu. However, Senbon spit out its pink little tongue at Senju and said, "Hateful master, I've had enough of you using me to nurse others every day. I quit, I'm on strike, I want to play with Muramasa, don't worry, that's it." Suddenly, Senju's back teeth were grinding. Especially when he felt that Lulu's eyes, which were hidden behind the eye mask, could not hide the look of watching the show. This was undoubtedly a full of feng shui. And Kachiki Hiraiki looked at Senbon's palm-sized cute image and actions, and couldn't help but feel a little amused. Although the physical image of the sword soul is not absolutely positively correlated with the actual combat power, Senbon's appearance looks like a powerful posture. I can only say that it is worthy at being a healing zanpakutō, right? The dissatisfaction with his master was actually concentrated on being frequently asked by Senju to use power to heal others, which was induced by Muramasa's ability to rebel. For a time, Kachiki Hiraiki's original vigilance against Senju, which was not much, was reduced to a certain extent. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 206. Rebellious Senbon Sakura. Muramasa's ability is undoubtedly extremely disgusting to the god of death. It is purely to instigate other people's zanpakutō to run away from home. At the moment, Senju felt like his own naughty child was kidnapped by Muramasa with a lollipop. Senbon, are you coming back? If not, then don't come back. Don't think I don't know that Muramasa only induced the consciousness formed by the zanpakutō, not the zanpakutō itself. Senju Cheng said in an orderly manner. That is to say, your consciousness temporarily leaving will only affect my ability to release zanpakutō in the short term. In the end, even if you die outside, I can slowly form another zanpakutō consciousness to replace your existence. Senju Cheng looked at Senju Cheng in shock, and then looked at Muramasa beside him and said, Muramasa, is that so? And Senju Cheng's voice still did not stop, and continued to speak. Then I can change this tiny zanpakutō image. I want to reconstruct the appearance of a lady-like sword soul with fair skin, beautiful face and long legs. No. Senju Cheng flew back from Muramasa in an instant, arguing angrily with red eyes. Damn Master Cheng-ge, have you really thought about changing to another sword soul? Do you think you can live up to the Lun family? The Lun family is definitely the image you are most satisfied with. However, the next moment, when Senju Cheng was excited, Senju Cheng's left hand grabbed Senju Cheng from behind and directly grasped Senju Cheng in his palm. Senju Cheng. Then, Senju Cheng grabbed Senju Cheng and put it in his pocket. One hand kept it in his pocket, and the other hand pushed his glasses easily, as if something insignificant had just happened. Witnessing the whole process, Cheng-ge subconsciously popped into his mind a world control. To be honest, the newly materialized zanpakutō can take away most of the power. For many Shinigami who rely on the power of zanpakutō, they may not even be the opponents of their materialized zanpakutō. However, Senju Cheng subdued his zanpakutō so skillfully and packed it up and put it in his pocket. Why is Cheng so skilled? Not to mention Cheng-ge, even Cheng-ge and Muramasa were completely stunned. Can we only say that it is worthy at the materialization of a healing zanpakutō? This is completely a joke, it has no fighting power at all, and it was subdued by the original owner in an instant. But what Cheng-ge and Muramasa didn't know was that the strongest ability of the all-seeing in the Seireitei state is to realize its own ultimate spirit body through spirit control. However, the body of all-seeing in the outside world is completely dependent on the power of Muramasa himself, and it is impossible to construct an ultimate spirit body for all-seeing. When the two sides are close, all-seeing is held by the ultimate spirit body, and it has no ability to resist at all. At this moment, Senju Cheng was stuffed into the pocket by Senju Cheng as a pocket princess. Senju Cheng blocked Senju Cheng's mouth with one finger, and the rest of his fingers were constantly stroking Senju Cheng. Pleasure. This was undoubtedly the pleasure that Senju Cheng had dreamed of, and it even made Senju Cheng tremble faintly with comfort. How many times have you been tortured to death by Senju Cheng in the spiritual space? Finally, this opportunity for revenge has come. Senju Cheng, you can't blame the master for this. It was you who didn't stay in the spiritual space obediently, but disobeyed and ran to the outside world to materialize. The master also had to move his fingers diligently in order to train you into a better zanpakutō. Lulu. Master. Let Rinjia go, Rinjia will never play with me again. Stop pinching, this materialized body is about to fail. Just don't say that Senju Cheng can't hear the voice of Senju Cheng now. Even if he hears it, he still won't stop. Although this body of Senju Cheng is equivalent to a part of Muramasa's power, only the consciousness belongs to Senju Cheng, but this does not prevent Senju Cheng from treating it as the real Senju Cheng to repay. However, Muramasa realized something, and before Senju Cheng's materialized spirit body completely collapsed, his figure flashed and rushed towards Senju Cheng and Cheng-ge again. And the left hand must always keep the clamp on Senju Cheng, and with the rebellion of Senju Cheng, Senju Cheng will not be able to restore the ability of spiritual control in a short time. There is no doubt that under this state, Senju Cheng, relying only on zanpakutō, is not capable of competing with Muramasa, who was a captain-level Shinigami. Especially when he had to take Cheng-ge into consideration, Senju Cheng symbolically persisted for several rounds like an ordinary doctor, and simply surrendered to show his weakness. Damn it. Witnessing this scene, Cheng-ge, who could no longer bear it, chose to release his zanpakutō directly, trying to create a chance for Senju Cheng to escape. Scatter, Senbon Bancho. In an instant, the zanpakutō Senbon Bancho that had been trying to face Cheng-ge's blade quickly scattered into countless cherry blossoms. Stop your presumptuous behavior, Muramasa. With Kachika Byakuya's roar, a large number of dreamy cherry blossom petals swept towards Muramasa, who was holding Senju Cheng hostage. However, before those cherry blossoms fell on Muramasa, the purple wave that spread from Muramasa expanded. The next moment, Byakuya Kachika's zanpakutō Senbon Bancho could not even last for a moment. Countless cherry blossoms quickly faded, and in their place, a samurai wearing a ferocious mask and a cherry blossom headdress stood in front of Byakuya Kachika. TSK, Byakuya, your impulsive and irritable personality has not changed at all. It's hard for you to deliberately close your inner world for so long. Seeing this, Kachika Hibaiki spoke with a tone full of sarcasm and disdain. It's just a pity that now Senbon Bancho will also be the power in my hands. Kachika Byakuya, who could not suppress his anger and wanted to draw his sword, had just moved, and the countless cherry blossoms floating from the Senbon Bancho suddenly surrounded Byakuya Kachika. The dreamlike petals cut through, and blood splashed. As the petals slowly dispersed, Byakuya Kachika, who was covered in blood, had already fallen to the ground powerlessly. Chapter 207 The Stolen Key. But even so, Kachika Byakuya still stared at Kachika Hibaiki's direction, and said angrily, Kachika Hibaiki, let go of father and Makoto, or you will definitely regret it. Ha ha ha, the heir of the Kachika family is so incompetent and furious. What a mockery! The noble heir of the Kachika family lying on the ground is threatening, but there is no deterrent power at all. Kachika Hibaiki said with a sneer, but he did not dare to really kill the two direct heirs, Kachika Sojin and Kachika Byakuya. He turned to look at Senju Makoto, who was held hostage by Muramasa, and said with a smile, Makoto, don't worry, I'll trouble you to come with me for a while. Although the Kachika family courtyard was originally surrounded by a small barrier that isolated spiritual pressure, Kachika Hibaiki, who estimated that the time was almost up, did not delay any further. Then, Kachika Hibaiki directly opened the door behind him, and then led Muramasa, Senbon Bancho and Senju Makoto into the broken world. Kachika Sojin, Kachika Byakuya, if you don't want Makoto to get into any trouble, tell Captain General Yamamoto what I'm saying. Don't try to kill me. As Kachika Hibaiki finished speaking, the figures were gradually blocked by the closing gate, and finally disappeared in front of Byakuya Kachika. Damn it. Ah. Byakuya Kachika hammered the ground angrily, then crawled towards Kachika Sojin, trying to stop the bleeding for him. Kachika Sojin, who was stabbed several times by Kachika Hibaiki, had almost half of his body covered in blood, and he had completely fainted and lost consciousness at some point. Finally, just before Byakuya Kachika was about to lose consciousness, he saw several figures of the 6th Division's chief officers who had hurried over. Master Byakuya, Master Sojin, what on earth happened? Quick, send the 2 masters to the 4th Division for treatment, and as the bodies of the 3 Shinigami of the 1st Division who were killed by the vacant Cheng-ge were discovered, what happened in the Kachika courtyard was exposed. It was also revealed that Kachika Hibaiki escaped from prison and killed his colleagues, attacked the Kachika family, and kidnapped the vice-captain of the 4th Division to escape to the human world. Dong dong dong. A series of hurried footsteps sounded in Unohanaretsu's courtyard, which made Unohanaretsu subconsciously think of the stupid disciple Senju Makoto. Are you back? Unohanaretsu's face subconsciously showed a smile, and then quickly restrained it. When he was about to teach Senju Makoto, the stupid disciple, a good lesson, he suddenly realized that something was wrong. The frequency of the footsteps was wrong, and the fluctuation of the spiritual pressure was also wrong. The next moment, Aokiriza and Kotetsu, who were panting heavily, suddenly opened the sliding door and appeared in front of Unohanaretsu with threat eyes. Captain, it's bad. Vice-Captain Senju Makoto has been kidnapped and taken away from the Seireitei. As Aokiriza and Kotetsu's anxious voices rang out in unison, Unohanaretsu's originally gentle and kind expression suddenly changed, and the flower arrangement material held by 2 fingers in his hand was directly broken. The next moment, a terrifying blood-colored spiritual pressure suddenly erupted with Unohanaretsu as the center. The originally gentle eyes only drooped slightly with Unohanaretsu, and Unohanaretsu's expression seemed to have changed into a different person, appearing both gloomy and terrifying. Then, Unohanaretsu picked up the zanpakutō placed beside him with one hand, and walked step by step to the front of Aokiriza and Kotetsu, who looked terrified, and asked in a calm tone, "Who took my disciple away?" Kotetsu swallowed a mouthful of saliva, forcibly bearing the fear that seemed to emerge from his body all the time, and quickly answered, "Kachika Hibaiki. I just heard the news from Kachika Byakuya, who was sent to the 4th Division for treatment." Kachika Byakuya claimed that Kachika Hibaiti hijacked Vice Captain Senju and entered the crossing gate in order to escape from the Seireitei and avoid being hunted down. Unohana Retsu heard this, but did not speak. He just unconsciously tightened his hand holding his zanpakutō a little bit, and strode past Kotetsuya and Yokiriza to walk out of the house. A gust of night wind blew, making the captain's adori worn by Unohana Retsu rustle. The four behind him seemed to be bleeding crazily in front of Kotetsuya and Yokiriza, dyeing Unohana Retsu's entire back completely red. However, in a moment of distraction, Kotetsuya and Yokiriza's vision seemed to have recovered, and everything just now seemed to be just an illusion. At this moment, a hell butterfly that seemed to be late landed on Unohana Retsu's shoulder, and a message was synchronized to Unohana Retsu. However, Unohana Retsu pointed his slender index finger at the hell butterfly on his shoulder, and a shadow that forth. White thunder flashed past, blasting the hell butterfly into ashes. His lips slightly opened, and his tone was calm and cold, as if he was answering someone. I refuse. The next moment, the two captains, Kamraku Shunsui and Jikita Jashiro, came together and blocked Unohana Retsu. Senior seems to be particularly irritable tonight. Kamraku Shunsui's nonchalant voice arrived before the figure, as if he was deliberately trying to ease the atmosphere. However, when Kamraku Shunsui saw Unohana Retsu's horrified and terrifying expression, he subconsciously revealed a bitter smile on his face and said secretly, "It's over, I'm afraid I'm going to run into Senior's knife this time. The old man really gave me a big problem." Unohana Retsu spoke in a voice that revealed naked murderous intent. "Get out of the way, if you don't want to be cut into 90 pieces before Kachika Hibaiki." "Senior, don't say such scary words," Kakushunsui said with a wry smile, fearing that he would be killed by Unohana Retsu in an instant. He drew his sword without hesitation to maintain the state of liberation, and couldn't help but madly scold Kachika Hibaiki, that idiot. Even if Kachika Hibaiki kidnapped Kachika Byakuya, the trouble caused to the 13th Division of the Gotti would not be so serious. However, when did that idiot notice the information that Senju Cheng was particularly valued by old man Yamamoto, and actually chose to kidnap the person who should not be kidnapped in the entire Seireitei? What an idiot! Didn't he even understand why the old man paid special attention to a vice-captain of the healing division? In Kakushunsui's eyes, Senju Cheng was the key to suppress Unohana Retsu's killing intentions, and who knows, through Senju Cheng, he could make Captain Unohana Retsu completely control his killing intentions in the future. However, that idiot Kachika Hibaiki simply snatched the key away, leaving a horrible, bloodthirsty beast unleashed in Jingling Tang. Chapter 208 Find Senju Cheng. Senior, don't be impulsive. The old man has already known about this. He has sent the 1st, 2nd, 12th and 13th Divisions to start a comprehensive search for the traces of Vice Captain Senju in the human world. Everything will be fine soon. Kakushunsui tried to comfort Unohana Retsu. "No, nothing." Unohana Retsu slowly placed one hand on the hilt of the knife and spoke coldly. "Makoto is not your disciple, so you naturally have the leisure to tell me not to be impulsive. It's okay. Let me cut off some of your important limbs and live and die with Makoto. I think you can feel my feelings firsthand." No. Kakushunsui subconsciously took a step back and waved his hands repeatedly. "Senior, don't be like this." But Unohana Retsu obviously didn't give Kakushunsui time to show off, and spoke with a stronger murderous intent. "Finally, repeat, get out of the way, Kakushunsui." Kakushunsui's face became serious, and he pressed his bamboo hat with one hand and spoke. "Senior, this is really difficult for me. The old man gave me a death order that I must accompany Captain Unohana to attend the captain's meeting to discuss countermeasures. How about you, Senior? Be considerate of the junior." Unohana Retsu did not say anything else, but only slightly exerted force on the palm of his hand holding the handle of his zanpakutō and slowly pulled it out a little. In an instant, the terrifying blood-colored spiritual pressure that was almost visible to the naked eye began to erupt. Wait, cough cough. At this time, Yukita Jashiro, who had not spoken, pressed his chest with one hand and spoke weakly. "Senior Unohana, I can guarantee that Makoto-kun will not be in danger of life, and compared to Senior Unohana going alone to search, it is obviously more efficient to use most of the 13th Gotti squad to search." Unohana Retsu heard this, turned his eyes, stared at Yukita Jashiro without speaking. And Yukita Jashiro also continued to speak. "And I promise that the Gotti 13 will definitely do its best to find Makoto-kun's whereabouts, and it's not just a show." As these words rang out, Unohana Retsu's eyes dropped slightly, and then he said, Yukituk, since that's the case, I'll trust you once. Please make sure to find Makoto's whereabouts as soon as possible. He is very important to me. No, he is very important to the 4th Division. Don't worry, Unohana-senpai, even if it's just from a personal perspective, Makoto-kun is a very good friend. I will definitely find Makoto-kun's whereabouts as soon as possible. Yukitu Joshiro answered humbly. Unohana Retsu nodded, then turned around and walked towards the 13th Division's barracks with his hands holding the knife, and said, I won't participate in this meaningless meeting. I'll go to the 13th Division's cross-world gate and wait. Once you confirm the whereabouts of Kachika Hibiki, please let me know as soon as possible. I must kill Kachika Hibiki with my own hands. On the other side, as the order to search for Kachika Hibiki and Senju Makoto was immediately issued to the secret mobile team. Now that Seireitei has gradually entered the decision-making level of the secret mobile team, her pupils almost shrank subconsciously. How long has it been since Shiwa and Yorishi abandoned her and left Soul Society? Why? Why did this Kachika Hibiki take away important people from me? At that moment, Seireitei was extremely angry and even unconsciously entered her own spiritual space. The zanpakutō spirit in front of her seemed to be saying something. However, Seireitei only stayed for a moment and forced herself out of the spiritual space. Then, without waiting for the current top leader, Omida Nozomi, to give an order, she immediately mobilized all the forces that could be mobilized to search for the whereabouts of Senju Makoto in the real world. When Omida Nozomi, who was already resting at home late at night, came to the secret mobile team with a somewhat messy death suit, Seireitei had already led a large number of secret mobile team members to the real world. However, Omida Nozomi would not care about Seireitei's acting first and reporting later behavior, but felt a sense of collapse. Which bastard kidnapped the guest of honor of the Shifen Yuan family whom I respect? Not to mention that in the eyes of Omida Nozomi, Senju Makoto is suspected to be the lover of Yorishi. Even if Senju Makoto and Shifen Yuan Yushiro have a friendly relationship, Omida Nozomi will never tolerate such a thing. Move out, everyone move out. Under Omida Nozomi's subsequent orders, the entire secret mobile team, except for a very small number of members who were not mobilized, almost the entire secret mobile team came out in full force. Then, Omida Nozomi, who was completely afraid of taking responsibility, sneaked into the courtyard of the Shifen Yuan family, and then contacted Shifen Yuan Yorishi in the present world through special channels. At the same time, a certain place in the present world has gradually been transformed into a factory building that combines various strange styles. Yo-yo check no-yo. Aha. A real man should exercise his body, lifting weights is a good thing. Yamada Seinazuak, whose eyes were sunken due to the torture of this group of over-energetic guys, murmured with a dull look. It's so lively that it would be great if you guys could die. In Yamada Seinazuak's view, as far as he could see, there were almost no normal people in the entire factory. Why could they integrate into the real world so quickly? Yamamara Lisa hiding in the corner reading porn, Road Guru Makensei lifting weights crazily, Kuronko Yorishi who looked cool but was sharpening his claws, Fenj Kaujira who was addicted to music, Yurehara Kisuke who was hiding in the corner and knocking on something every day, and Akito Bokichina who was grinning like a fool every day. More importantly, most of the guys here are violent, and they will directly take action if they can't win with their sharp tongues. This was a complete loss of happiness for Yamada Seinazuak, who was not good at fighting and liked to be sarcastic. And Yamada Seinazuak had to endure the situation in front of him where he could be sarcastic everywhere, but he couldn't be sarcastic. It was almost more painful than killing Yamada Seinazuak. Finally, Yamada Seinazuak, who couldn't hold it in any longer, pushed his glasses and commented. Yeah but Moralisa, when you watch porn, can you cover your panties better and not show them? You're obviously an old driver, but you insist on pretending to be an innocent schoolgirl and wearing a modern sailor suit. Don't you know your age? The next moment, Yaiba Moralisa, who seemed to be a little embarrassed, appeared in front of Yamada Seinazuak in a sailor suit, and pushed her glasses with a well-behaved gesture. Then the next moment, Yaiba Moralisa picked up a big hammer with her backhand and smashed it on Yamada Seinazuak's face, spinning Yamada Seinazuak in the air for more than 10 times before landing. Moralisa pushed her glasses up again and said in a cold tone, "Go to hell, perverts who peek at girls' panties. Also, who would read pornographic comics? Don't slander me." Chapter 209 Masked Legion. Then, Moralisa felt that she was not satisfied. She didn't care that she was wearing a sailor suit. She raised her beautiful legs and kicked Yamada Seinazuak's head several times. Then she turned around and left with a few comics. Yamada-sana's yoke was lying on the ground with his eyes blank, and his legs twitched from time to time, as if he was almost dying. However, no one paid attention to Yamada-sana's yoke in this scene, as if they had already gotten used to it. Among them, the black cat Yorishi, who was sitting elegantly on a high place licking his paws, looked down from above, but vaguely saw a nice look from Yamada-sana's yoke's bruised and swollen facial features. Obviously, Yamada-sana's yoke was in pain and happiness just when Shifu Yuan Yorishi was hesitating whether to record this scene and then find a time to put this scene on the bedside of Yamada-rinka. The black cat Yorishi tilted his head slightly, as if listening to some news. The next moment, Kuronko Yorishi's cat pupil shrank slightly, and his figure flashed and appeared in the middle of the factory. He spoke in a somewhat solemn voice. Everyone, something happened. In an instant, the many hollow Shinigami who were originally looking for fun to kill time were all stunned. The vice-captain of the 4th Division was kidnapped by Kachika Hibiki and used as a hostage to escape from the Seireitei. According to the information left by the gate, they are likely to appear around the Juryland Kurakura town. As Kuronko Yorishi described, everyone subconsciously looked at Yamada-sana's yoke, and then quickly reacted. Kuronko Yorishi should be talking about Senju Cheng who had treated them. The attitude of the Central 46th Chamber and the Seireitei is still unclear, and according to the style of the Central 46th Chamber, in order to maintain the dignity of the Seireitei, they may not care whether it will lead to the sacrifice of a vice-captain. After a pause, Kuronko Yorishi said in a serious tone. And Senju Cheng is our important ally in the Seireitei, and he has treated you all before. It is not reasonable for us to just sit back and do nothing. Many hollow Shinigami heard this and expressed their approval. It's just that it's still very inconvenient for us to move around in the outside world in our current state. Once the Seireitei finds our traces, it might even trigger a war. Hirako Mako expressed her concerns and said, Well, at this moment, Urahara Kisuke grabbed his messy hair and said in a nonchalant manner, What a coincidence, I just completed the research on the Ratsu blocking artificial body, which can be provided to everyone to move around in the outside world without worrying about the Ratsu fluctuations being detected by the Seireitei. In an instant, most of the hollow Shinigami present had black faces. Seireitei even took out a slipper and threw it at Urahara Kisuke, shouting, You bawdy, you must have finished it long ago, but you just didn't want to take it out in case we run around, right? Ah, Hiri, I'll be very sad if you doubt me like this. As Urahara Kisuke said this, he pulled out one artificial body after another that was growing rapidly from his crotch, which made the expressions of the hollow Shinigami look as weird as they could be. I always feel that wearing such an artificial body will make me look unclean. Yamamara-Lisa said seriously. I agree, Mr. Urahara must have done it on purpose. Kunichiro agreed. Damn it, bored Urahara dares to say that he didn't prepare it in advance? Sarakakahiri said with gritted teeth, and without hesitation released his zanpakutō and slashed at Urahara Kisuke. Cut him off, kill the snake. Seeing that a farce was about to begin again, Kuronko Yorishi appeared on the sword of Sarukihiri almost instantly, and the spiritual pressure that seemed to be weighed heavily on Sarukihiri's body, instantly stopping Sarukihiri's behavior. Now, there is no time for such nonsense, Kuronko Yorishi said in a serious tone. Don't forget what our ultimate goal is. This is the opportunity for you Masked Corps to cooperate initially. If you can't even save Senju Cheng, let alone deal with the mastermind behind your hollowification. And Urahara Kisuke and I may also need to reconsider the value of cooperating with you. Suddenly, the expressions of the hollowed Shinigami all changed slightly. Wow, provocation. Yorishi. But I have to admit that what Mr. Yorishi said is not without reason. Okay, Hiri, stop making trouble. We have been locked up in this small factory for so long. This is a rare opportunity to move around. In that case, let's make a big fuss. Before Hiri Saruki seemed to have thought of something and finished her excited speech, Hirako Mako interrupted her and said seriously. It's not okay to make a big fuss. There is no need to start a war with this Seireitei. But we have to find the location of Macau Town. Oh, this place looks like Kurakura Town. Sure enough, the concentration of spirit particles is completely different from other places in the present world. Makoto Senju scanned the surrounding environment and thought silently. In fact, after the Simra Bang materialized in the outside world under the power of Muramasa, Makoto Senju's condition was much better than that of Byakuya Kachika. At least, Makoto Senju did not completely lose the ability to control spirit particles, but it was equivalent to being weakened to a considerable extent. A more accurate statement should be that without the consciousness of Senju to coordinate, Makoto Senju's use of Senju felt a serious delay. Perhaps, this is also related to the fact that Makoto Senju often uses the power of his zanpakutō without releasing his zanpakutō, so he is not like Byakuya Kachika who cannot use his zanpakutō power in a short period of time. For Makoto Senju, even if he loses the coordination of the sword spirit of Senju, the feeling of using Senju is not unfamiliar. It is for this reason that Senju Makoto understands that Muramisa's ability can only affect the sword soul consciousness of Senju, but it does not truly deprive the god of death of his zanpakutō ability. Chapter 210 Dear friends and family. However, despite this, Senju Makoto still had to admit that Kachika Hibiki's zanpakutō ability was definitely of the phantom god of civil war type. As if noticing Senju Makoto's gaze, Kachika Hibiki turned his head and glanced at Senju Makoto, then revealed an ambiguous smile. Then, Kachika Hibiki led Senju Makoto into an area similar to a villa, picked a villa at random and walked in. Then, Kachika Hibiki began to set up a small barrier in this villa to isolate the leakage of spiritual pressure fluctuations. As for Senju Makoto, Kachika Hibiki neither imposed any seals nor broke Senju Makoto's locks, as if he had no worries at all that Senju Makoto would escape or fight back. In Kachika Hibiki's opinion, Senju Makoto really did not pose any threat. Senju Makoto was just a vice captain of the medical squad who did not even master Bankai. Born in Rukongai, it was impossible for Senju Makoto to master any dangerous things such as kidnapping techniques or artifacts. Kachika Hibiki and the materialized Muramisa both have the strength of a captain. Even the weakest materialized Senbon Bancho has the ability of a vice captain who is good at fighting. Afterwards, until Kachika Hibiki had set up the barrier, he returned to the house with Muramisa, leaned on the sofa, and said with a gesture as if he had completely controlled Senju Makoto. Makoto, you are also a smart person. Maybe we need to live in the real world for decades. I believe you won't do something that makes it difficult for me, right? Otherwise, I can only do something that Makoto may not be happy to see. I understand. Senju Makoto put his hands in his pockets, his eyes slightly lowered, as if he had completely accepted his fate. Muramasa walked in front of Senju Makoto and stretched out his hand and said, "Please hand over Senju." However, in the face of Muramasa's request, Senju Makoto still kept his hands in his pockets, ignored Muramasa, and looked at Kachika Hibiki and said, "I refuse. The all-seeing has a special meaning to me. It is as important as a beloved relative. I will never give it to you." Kachika Hibiki stared at Senju Makoto for a few seconds, sneered, and said, "Ha ha ha, Makoto, you are really weak. Zanpakutō is just a tool for the god of death. You actually regard it as a beloved relative." Suddenly, Muramasa, who originally wanted to remind Kachika Hibiki that the ability of the all-seeing seems not so simple, became more gloomy. He couldn't help but look at Kachika Hibiki deeply. Then, Kachika Hibiki completely ignored the change in Muramasa's expression and spoke. "Makoto, you can choose any room in the villa to live in, but you must not leave the villa without my permission." "No problem." Senju Makoto agreed, and then without saying anything more to Kachika Hibiki, he chose a room in the corner and walked in. Kachika Hibiki was not impressed by Senju Makoto's cold reaction. Instead, he moved his limbs and lay on the sofa in an extremely arrogant manner. It's wonderful to be away from the Kachika family. There are no more cumbersome and disgusting family rules. Everything requires that the Kachika family's honor must not be damaged. TSK, the Kachika family's honor, what a joke. Kachika Hibiki's expression gradually became a little distorted with joy, and he muttered, "Stay in the human world for a while first, and when the Seireitei relaxes its vigilance, let Muramasa alert back in the Seireitei and determine the positions of the zanpakutō souls of the captains and vice-captains. By then, all the souls will be materialized at once and form a zanpakutō army. Who in the entire Seireitei dares to disobey me? My will be the glory of the Kachika family, and even the glory of the entire Seireitei." At the end of his words, Kachika Hibiki's eyes could not help but reveal a strong enthusiasm, as if everything was within reach. Senju Makoto listened to the ambition of Kachika Hibiki outside the room, which seemed to be completely unconcealed, but his eyes could not help but reveal a trace of pity and sympathy. This child became the son-in-law of the Kachika family, but he did not learn the rigid rigor and humble etiquette of the Kachika family, but instead completely absorbed the kind of arrogance that belongs to the nobility. Not to mention that even if the zanpakutō soul is lost, it will only make it difficult for the Shinigami to use the power of zanpakutō in the short term, and it does not completely take away the power of the Shinigami. What's more, for a monster like Unohana Teacher, whether she has the power of zanpakutō or not does not affect her ability to kill through the Seireitei alone. By the way, has Unohana Teacher already known that I was kidnapped? Senju Cheng stroked his chin and couldn't help but smile. Being kidnapped this time was undoubtedly a good opportunity for Senju to play that victim, even though Kachika Hibaiki was much more polite than Senju expected, and was so arrogant that he didn't even apply the seal. Senju had already decided that he would definitely use Kachika Hibaiki to play that victim to Unohana-sensei. Senju had even prepared the quotes for playing the victim to Unohana-sensei. Senju would be lying in front of Unohana Teacher covered in blood, holding Unohana Teacher's hand with tears streaming down his face, and writing a bloody word miserable on the ground with his fingers. Teacher, I miss you so much. I almost thought I would never see you again. I swear to resist. I refuse to obey. I tried to escape many times. I just hope I can live and return to the teacher's side. It's just that Kachika Hibaiki is too cruel. Teacher, you understand me. I'm not good at fighting, and my zanpakutō soul is bewitched by Muramasa. Teacher, don't leave me, let me take a good look at you for the last time. Thinking of this, Senju couldn't help but curl up his lips. In this way, Senju believed that even if Unohana Teacher was as hard-hearted as a stone, she would never care about the little thing that accidentally offended her before, right? At this moment, Senju felt that he was really a planner. Of course, Senju didn't really want to stay in the world with Kachika Hibaiki, that idiot, for decades. And even if Soul Society really didn't find Kachika Hibaiki, Senju would have plenty of ways to escape and return to Seireitei. Thinking of this, Senju took out the all-seeing from his pocket. However, after being kept in his pocket for so long, the all-seeing seemed to be broken. His eyes were sluggish, his body was limp, and his mouth was drooling. You could even see the pink tongue that was weakly tilted to one side. Chapter 211. Special Spiritual Structure. There is no doubt that Senbon Bancho was definitely played badly this time. For ordinary people, being tickled on the armpits for half an hour might cause the risk of dying, not to mention Senbon Bancho, who was directly put in Senju Cheng's pocket and stroked wildly. Senju Cheng even lifted Senbon Bancho's little feet and swung them left and right, but Senbon Bancho still did not react at all. Seeing this, Senju Cheng's expression was gentle and amiable, and even a little sadness appeared in the corners of his eyes. Senbon Bancho, hey, why can't you just listen to me? You insisted on running away from home to be a rebellious child, and look, you ended up like this. What do you say we should do? At this point, Senju Cheng couldn't help but sigh again, then licked his lips and said, "There's no other way, Senbon Bancho. Now that things have come to this, I might as well dissect you. I've always been very curious about what the spiritual structure of the zanpakutō would look like. Senbon Bancho, you won't blame me, right? Anyway, your body is just the embodiment of Muramasa's power. You can still return to the spiritual space after you die. Don't answer." It seems that Senbon Bancho is also very supportive of the master. After the dissection of you is completed, the master will completely forgive you for running away from home this time. Then, Senju left hand did not let go, and his right hand manipulated the spirit particles to form a composite rope to tie up Senbon Bancho's limbs. Moreover, it was tied in the style that is widely circulated in the world, which can make women absolutely unable to resist and struggle. Then, Senju pressed Senbon Bancho on the table with his left hand, and drew his right hand to pull out the zanpakutō from his waist, with the tip of the knife pointing very steadily at Senbon Bancho's belly. Then, Senju Cheng saw that Senbon Bancho, who seemed to be limp all the time, trembled in his limbs, and his teeth chattered uncontrollably. Moreover, as the tip of Senju Cheng's knife moved closer and farther away from Senbon Bancho, the chattering of Senbon Bancho's teeth seemed to increase and decrease. After Senju Cheng played back and forth for a while, Senbon Bancho finally realized that he seemed to be exposed. He looked at Senju Cheng with his eyes wide open pitifully, and said in a crying voice, "Master, Lungia will never dare to do it again. Please forgive Lungia." It seems that Senbon Bancho still hasn't recovered. At this time, Senbon Bancho usually shouts something like a perverted master. Senju Cheng said with a smile, No, Lungia has definitely recovered. Master, didn't you realize that Lungia didn't dare to attack you from the beginning to the end? The reason why Lungia appeared was to let you know the importance of Lungia. Senju Cheng said miserably. Indeed, Senraman is very important to me. Senju Cheng said while stroking his chin. However, before Senraman's joy was fully revealed, Senju Cheng continued. Now Senraman is an important experimental material for me. Not to mention that the zanpakutō's soul spirit is of great research value, and Muramis's ability is also very interesting. Among them, bewitching the soul is nothing. It should be similar to the ability of hypnosis and distortion, and then amplify the original desire of the zanpakutō, so as to conflict with the original owner. The most valuable part is Muramis's ability, which can make the souls realize the embodiment of their spirits, and truly create a spirit that can accommodate the souls from nothing. At the end of the story, in the somewhat horrified eyes of Senraman, Senju Cheng's face showed a bit of fanaticism. Senraman. Until this moment, Senraman was almost sure that Senju Cheng was definitely planning to dissect himself. Wow! What a terrible master! I will never leave the spiritual space again. Master Cheng-ge, don't dissect me. For a moment, Senju Cheng actually cried without any ambition. Senju Cheng, don't be afraid. Anyway, this is not your real body. It's all fake. Just treat it as a nightmare and let it go. Senju Cheng spoke gently, as if comforting some seriously ill patients who don't want to have surgery. No, absolutely not. Senju Cheng refused without hesitation, and then suddenly thought of something and said, Master, by the way, isn't there Senbon Bancho? Senbon Bancho is so much bigger than me, and it will definitely be clearer if it is dissected. Senju Cheng said with an embarrassed look on his face. But, I can't use my zanpakutō ability now, so I may not be Senbon Bancho's opponent. It doesn't matter, Rinjia can help the master catch Senbon Bancho and send it to the master for dissection. Senju Cheng said quickly. Is it really possible? Senju Cheng, this won't be too difficult for you, right? Cheng asked with concern. No, it's absolutely not difficult at all. Senju Cheng answered Cheng with a solemn oath. Cheng pondered for a moment and answered gently. Well, Senju Cheng, don't say that the master is cold-hearted. Considering the relationship between us, the gentle master will reluctantly give you a chance to perform. Thank you, master. As Cheng released his left hand that had been holding Senju Cheng almost flew out of the window as if he was running for his life. Cheng was not in a hurry at all. He raised 3 fingers in the direction of Senju Cheng and said, Don't forget, Senju Cheng, you only have 3 days. Senju Cheng showed his little head to Cheng outside the window, stuck out his tongue, and said, I know, damned Master Cheng. Watching the all-seeing disappear completely out the window, Senju Cheng recalled the structure he had sensed through the way of return when he touched the all-seeing before, and his eyes revealed a thoughtful look. I didn't expect that there would be such an unexpected gain. The special way of constructing the spirit body is not to use the soul as an anchor point to fix the spirit body like the conventional way, but to construct the spirit body based on the sword soul consciousness of the zanpakutō. In a sense, if the way of constructing the spirit body with consciousness as the core can be thoroughly studied, it will undoubtedly create a new spirit system. After noticing this way of constructing the spirit body, Senju Cheng almost immediately thought of the situation of fusion. When the spirit body constructed by one's own soul has defects, turning to the way of reconstructing the spirit body with consciousness as the core is undoubtedly the best way to make up for this defect. More importantly, under Senju Cheng's practice, it was verified from the all-seeing that this kind of spirit body is also quite stable. Chapter 212. No Injury Circle. 2 days passed in a flash. After a tense and exciting search for Makoto in the Seireitei, Makoto Senju spent these 2 days quite comfortably. At least, after serving as the vice-captain of the 4th Division, Makoto Senju's vacation time has been greatly reduced. In other words, in a sense, the 4th Division is completely Makoto Senju's own territory, which means that Makoto Senju has endless team affairs and patients to deal with almost every day. In the past 2 days, Makoto Senju treated it as a vacation, and he was so comfortable that he looked like a salted fish lying flat in Kachikahibiki's eyes. He really didn't have the slightest idea of running away. Especially the little Senju Cheng often wandered around the villa, as if he was quite curious about Senbon Bancho, always keeping a distance from Senbon Bancho, as if he wanted to observe Senbon Bancho and make friends with her. In Kachika Hibaiki's opinion, when the zanpakutō was remained in substance, the zanpakutō abilities of the Shinigami themselves were basically in a state of being difficult to use. Senju Cheng didn't take the opportunity to kill Senbon's physical form to fully restore his zanpakutō ability, which also made Kachika Hibaiki's vigilance against Senju Cheng further decrease. Did Cheng really accept his fate? Plan to stay in the real world and live with me peacefully? Kachika Hibaiki inexplicably felt that this idea was a bit absurd, but every day he saw Senju Cheng's leisurely and gentle appearance, especially his skillful use of real-world items more smoothly than him. This made Kachika Hibaiki feel that Senju Cheng, the hostage, seemed to be living a much more comfortable life in the real world than him. Cheng, is there anything I need to bring you? On the morning of the third day, Kachika Hibaiki didn't know where he got a fake body from, and was about to go out to buy supplies, but he didn't forget to ask Senju Cheng. Senju Cheng, who happened to come downstairs, looked a little surprised, but he still casually reported the names of some medical books in the real world, and then thanked him. Thank you, Hibaiki, you don't have to buy all of them, just buy as many as you can. Kachika Hibaiki looked down at the half-page book list he had written down, and was a little confused by the names. However, this deliberate inquiry indirectly confirmed an idea of Kachika Hibaiki. It seems that Senju Cheng is really ready to settle down in the real world, otherwise he would not have prepared these books for leisure time. However, what Kachika Hibaiki did not know is that Senju Cheng was watching Kachika Hibaiki and Murumasa leave, and what he was thinking in his mind was that he would take these books back to the Soul Society at the time. Although with Senju Cheng's current status in the Seireitei, he can also purchase some real-world materials that he is interested in through the squats that often come into contact with the real world. But, free labor can be used for free, which can save some favors. Senju Cheng pushed his glasses and glanced at Senbon Sakura, who was sitting upright in the living room and was responsible for monitoring Senju Cheng's movements. Senbon Sakura's physical image is a purple-clad warrior wearing a ghost mask. In the past 2 days, his style seems to be quite rigid and serious, but his inner personality is obviously the type of irritable and impulsive. Noticing Senju Cheng's eyes, Senbon Sakura put one hand on his zanpakutō and looked at Senju Cheng with vigilance. However, Senju Cheng waved at Senbon Sakura, showing a gentle and kind smile, and said, Senbon Sakura, come to my room when you have time. I am very interested in Byakuya's zanpakutō. It would be great if I could learn more about you. Senbon Sakura quickly stood up and returned the gift from a distance, and then responded in a rigid way. Thank you for Cheng's kindness, but now I am a traitor to my master, and I dare not accept the courtesy of my master's close friend. You are polite. I believe that you have decided to leave Byakuya temporarily, and I believe there must be some reason why you have to do so. Senju Cheng answered gently, saying, compared to Senbon Sakura, my zanpakutō Senju Cheng is just a child who never grows up. If Senbon Sakura is free, please help me educate her a little. Cheng is too modest. Senju Cheng's power is definitely not inferior to mine. Senbon Sakura quickly replied. In response, Senju Cheng smiled, then looked at Senju Cheng who appeared in the other corner of the living room, and said, Senju Cheng, you can't mess around, don't cause too much trouble for Senbon Sakura. You don't need to teach Rinjie a lesson. Senju Cheng, who fully understood that his master was metaphorically urging him, responded to Senju Cheng with a pout. Then, Senju Cheng waved to Senbon Sakura, indicating that he would see her later, and then disappeared at the door of his room as Senbon returned the greeting respectfully. Senju Cheng followed Senju Cheng's words just now, slowly approached Senbon Sakura, and said timidly and cutely, Senbon Sakura, Rinjie wants to show you something, Senju Cheng said, while stretching out his clenched fist towards Senbon Sakura. As Senju Cheng approached, Senbon couldn't help but frown under the mask, but then he didn't refuse or retreat, but let Senju Cheng gain to the range of Senbon Sakura's no-injury circle. For a while, the smile on Senju Cheng's face became sweeter and sweeter. As friends of Kachika Byakuya, Cheng, Senju and Senju Cheng got very clear that the zanpakutō Senbon Sakura, which can be regarded as an integrated offenser and defenser, has a fatal flaw, the no-injury circle. That is to avoid countless cherry blossom blades from hurting oneself. There is an area with a radius of about 85 centimeters with the holder as the center, and this area is the range where the Senbon Sakura blade will never pass. In Makoto Senju's view, it represents that there is an extremely soft area in the heart of Kachika Byakuya, who is rigid and abides by the rules of the nobility. At the same time, entering this almost defenseless area means that the knife holder is easily injured. After all, Makoto Senju is a pure doctor. He is unwilling to take advantage of Senbon Sakura's weakness, nor is he willing to take advantage of people's unpreparedness to hurt Senbon Sakura's soft area. However, if it is handed over to Senju Cheng, Makoto Senju will have no psychological burden. Being attacked by such a cute girl, Senbon Sakura must be happy, right? The next moment, Senju Makoto, who returned to the room and deliberately did not completely close the door, suddenly heard a loud noise and a muffled groan, and then a sound of falling to the ground. Senju Cheng actually succeeded so easily. It seems that the plan to change Senju Cheng to an onion head hairstyle can be put aside for the next time when it is needed. Senju Makoto's mouth slightly curved, and while thinking secretly in the room, he silently put on a pair of white gloves. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 213. Hey! Female. In a dim world, Senbon Sakura only felt that her consciousness was constantly sinking and falling. She tried hard to wake up, but her consciousness was completely out of control. Everything was so confused, hazy, and chaotic. Indistinctly, Senbon Sakura felt that her important mask had been taken off. No. This made Senbon Sakura instinctively feel uncomfortable and unaccustomed. However, before Senbon Sakura's consciousness could react, she felt that her armor was opened, and it was opened little by little from the arm guards, shoulder guards, belts, and chest. The feeling was so clear, so strange, and so strong, almost since Senbon Sakura became conscious. The armor on the outside has always been worn by Senbon Sakura. It is a protection for herself and a firm and tough attitude expressed to the outside world. However, Senbon Sakura clearly couldn't see it at the moment, but under that strange feeling, she vaguely felt that she was opened. Hey! How could it be a woman? In a daze, Senbon Sakura seemed to hear a voice floating into her ears from a far distance, which made Senbon Sakura's consciousness suddenly shaken, and her subconsciousness fluctuated violently, as if some major secret had happened. P.S. In the original trajectory, Senbon Sakura only showed the delicate lower half of her face, but in fact, the real gender of Senbon Sakura was not specifically stated, so this is a second creation. The most important thing is that I personally think that the name Senbon Sakura is more suitable for women. However, the next moment, Senbon Sakura vaguely felt that her forehead was gently stroked by something gentle, and some kind of gentle power made her consciousness heavier and heavier, and her perception of the outside world became more and more dull. On the other side, at a gate that had just opened in the present world, Kachika Byakuya's cold and arrogant expression changed slightly, and his footsteps subconsciously stopped. Seeing this, Kachika Jinling, who was wearing the captain's Aori of the 6th Division and looked old but still had the aristocratic demeanor, asked, "What's wrong, Byakuya?" No, Kachika Byakuya shook his head, but one hand subconsciously pressed on his chest, frowning and saying, "I just suddenly felt something strange, inside. No, it seems that my zanpakutō has some strange feeling." Kachika Jinling guessed. Maybe it's Kachika Hibiki's ability. In the past, the Seireitei did not record a situation where the zanpakutō soul materialized and was away from the owner for a long time. No one knows what specific impact this will have on the original Shinigami. After a pause, Kachika Jinling looked around and continued. Therefore, Byakuya, you must find your zanpakutō soul as soon as possible. And before in the courtyard, you are too impulsive. You shouldn't release your zanpakutō under such circumstances. Under Kachika Jinling's teachings, Kachika Byakuya's expression did not change at all, and he just reiterated. The first priority at the moment is to rescue Makoto, the second priority is to retrieve the Senbon Sakura sword soul, and the third priority is to arrest Kachika Hibiki and wash away the glory of the Kachika family. Upon hearing this, Kachika Jinling turned her head and glanced at her grandson who was still wrapped in bandages but whose eyes were full of determination. Her eyes, which seemed to be always covered with a layer of sorrow, seemed to flash with approval. For that Kachika family, one of the 4 great nobles, being able to stick to one's own heart and weigh the importance is more important than anything else. Therefore, Kachiki is the history of Soul Society, and Kachiki is the glory that has lasted for tens of thousands of years. In the eyes of Kachiki Jinrin, Byakuya, the future head of the Kachiki family, has grown faster than expected during this period of time. However, we really need to find Makoto-kun as soon as possible, otherwise Captain Unohana, who has been sitting quietly on the other side of the gate for almost 3 days, can't hold back any longer. Makoto-kun was kidnapped in the Kachiki courtyard after all, and was taken away to protect the people of the Kachiki family. The Kachiki family has an unshakable responsibility for this. When he said this, Kachiki Jinrin's somewhat old and turbid eyes flashed with a trace of sorrow. Once Senju Makoto died, it was hard to imagine whether Captain Unohana would be angry and let the entire Kachiki family be buried with him. And at this moment, behind Kachiki Jinrin and Kachiki Byakuya, 2 figures, one large and one small, walked out of the gate that had not yet closed and spoke. Captain Kachiki is right, but it's not just because of Captain Unohana's pressure. What's more important is that Makoto-kun is an excellent and outstanding vice captain, and is also an important person who is indispensable to the Seireitei. Compared with the usual gentleness and mellowness, Aiden Sosok's tone at this moment is obviously more serious than usual. Now that the GOTY 13 is in turmoil, we absolutely cannot lose an important vice captain like Makoto-kun. Kachiki Jinrin nodded, and then spoke to Aizen Sosok and Ichimura Jin, who was following Aizen Sosok. No matter what, the Kachiki family has to thank Vice Captain Aizen and Ichimura-sensei for their assistance. If we find the trace of Vice Captain Senju, the Kachiki family will definitely reward them handsomely. Captain Kachiki is too polite. This is all for the Seireitei, Aiden Sosok responded gently, and then took the initiative to analyze. According to the various intelligence reports during this period, the most likely location for Kachiki Hibiki is still near Karakura town. By focusing on the characteristics of the spiritual land, he can also more effectively hide his spiritual pressure from being discovered by the Seireitei. Then I'll trouble Vice Captain Aizen. Then, Aiden Sosok took Ichimura Jin and Kachiki Jinrin and separated to search different areas. And according to the information that Seireitei has currently, only the gate used by Kachiki Hibiki leads to the vicinity of Karakura town. However, the space of the real world is undoubtedly huge, and it is entirely possible that after arriving in the real world from Karakura town, Kachiki Hibiki quickly rushed to other places to hide. In addition, Seireitei also needs to worry that an overly ostentatious and obvious search will make Kachiki Hibiki unfavorable to Senju Makoto. Therefore, after searching for 2 or 3 days, Seireitei has hardly obtained any truly valuable information. As Aizen Sosok brought Ichimura Jin directly to the center of Karakura town, Ichimura Jin, who had been pretending to be nonchalant about the search for Senju Makoto, couldn't help but speak. Vice Captain Aizen, even if Kachiki Hibiki has mastered a lot of the Kachiki family's ghost arts and forbidden techniques, if he wants to avoid the pursuit of Seireitei, he will not stay in Karakura town. Chapter 214 I found you, Kachiki Hibiki. Jin, don't think about Kachiki Hibiki with your cautious mindset. Aiden Sosok looked down at Karakura town below, and said calmly. Kachiki Hibiki is a foolish and arrogant man. With his simple mindset, he may not be able to avoid the idea of darkness under the lamp. Moreover, he is confident that he has controlled Makoto-kun, and he is probably still hiding in a conspicuous and remote corner of Karakura town. Upon hearing this, Jin Ichimura's squinting eyes flickered slightly, and then asked. What is Vice Captain Aizen going to do? Find Vice Captain Senju for Seireitei? No. Aiden Sosok pushed his glasses and said. I'm more interested in this man Kachiki Hibiki. Such a Shinigami has been completely transformed into a hollow. If his consciousness and zanpakutō mobility can be preserved, it will be a handy weapon to deal with the GOTY 13. Then I wish Vice Captain Aizen can successfully find Kachiki Hibiki. Ichimura Jin said with a smile, and it was completely impossible to tell what his specific emotions were. After a pause, Jin Ichimura reminded casually. But it's not appropriate for Vice Captain Aizen to look for Vice Captain Senju too blatantly, right? Although this will cause Kachiki Hibiki to misunderstand something, and maybe Kachiki Hibiki will kill the hostage Vice Captain Senju in anger, but it will be troublesome for Captain Unohana to remember it. Oh? Aiden Sosok looked at Ichimura Jin with a smile, and then said. This is all thanks to Jin's concern and reminder. It is indeed not a wise consequence to anger Captain Unohana, but I have been prepared for it. Then, under the gaze of Ichimura Jin, Aiden Sosok took out a pill about the size of a thumb from his arms. What is this? Ichimura Jin asked. According to an interesting theory of the Technology Development Bureau, it took 2 days to research this little gadget. Once crushed, it can produce a strong attraction to the hollow group. Aiden Sosok's mouth slightly curved, and explained patiently. Since it is not appropriate for the Shinigami to search for Kachika Hibiki on a large scale, then it is better to call on a larger group of hollows. With Kachika Hibiki's arrogant and clumsy aristocratic character, once a hollow offends him, he will definitely destroy and purify it without hesitation, and this is also one of the instincts that are integrated into the bones of the Shinigami. At the time, as long as we can determine whether the spiritual pressure of the disappeared hollow overlaps with the spiritual pressure of the known Shinigami, we can also determine the location of Kachika Hibiki. Ichimura-jin couldn't help but widen his eyes a little when he heard this, and said, "But if this happens, the Seireitei will definitely hold him accountable afterwards, right? And it is very likely that a large number of humans will be devoured by the hollows." Aiden Sosok pushed his glasses and said disapprovingly, "It's okay. The loyal Jin won't tell my secret, right? If so, then it's Kachika Hibiki who did this evil thing, and he's going to become a hollow in the future, so he won't mind his companions looking for him and calling him." As Aiden Sosok finished speaking, the substance that Aiden Sosok held between his fingers shattered. It wasn't just spiritual pressure, it was more like a polymer of emotions. As the shell shattered, the strong emotions that spread out almost passed through the barrier of the sundered world and were directly transmitted from the real world to the Huko Mundo. The next moment, with Ichimura-jin's slightly ugly face as he retreated behind Aiden Sosok, huge black cavities quickly broke out in the area of Karakura town. One after another, giant Killian kept rushing out of the black cavity. The huge figure wearing a white mask and covered in a layer of black clothes exuded heavy spiritual pressure one after another. Killian. The lowest level of the hollow, most of the chaotic consciousness creatures that don't even have individual consciousness. Although the Killians can only act on instinct, each one undoubtedly has the power close to the vice-captain level, and can cause great damage at any time. However, in just a moment, Ichimura-jin actually saw hundreds of Killians appearing in the entire Karakura town, and Killians continued to emerge from the dark black cavity. Witnessing this amazing scene, Aiden Sosok clapped his hands and commented as if he had done something insignificant. The first time I developed it, the dosage was indeed not controlled well. It seems that the number attracted is a little too much." Then, Aiden Sosok pushed his glasses and said, "Jin, you also help to sense it. If you can't find Kachika Hibiki, the Great Hollow Wave will not stop." And as the Killians opened their black cavities one after another and appeared in the world, not only were the many Shinigami around them shocked, but even Kachika Hibiki, who was frowning and selecting medical books for Senju Cheng, was also stunned. Killian. How could there be so many Killians? Kachika Hibiki looked extremely shocked through the spiritual pressure barrier that was always centered on himself and Muramasa. Even though Karakura town was a place of great spiritual power, theoretically, it was much more likely to attract hollows than other places, but this number was obviously too shocking. What is behind it? Kachika Hibiki guessed this possibility almost instantly. However, Kachika Hibiki's common sense did not think that the god of death could control the great hollows, but that only the higher level great hollows such as Achikate and even Vastold could control a large number of Killians. What a trouble! Kachika Hibiki packed up the books he had chosen, and while paying, he looked at the people around him who were still unaware, and his eyes could not help but reveal a bit of mockery. This is weakness. Even when you become the nutrients and food of the hollows, you still don't know. However, Kachika Hibiki obviously had no intention of protecting the weak, and took the books and left leisurely. However, the increasing density of Killians obviously blocked Kachika Hibiki's way back to the villa. "A mere Killian is not worthy of me making a deal." Kachika Hibiki looked at the Killian in front of him, who did not even have an individual consciousness, with arrogance, and commented lightly. Immediately, Muramasa understood and rushed towards the giant Killian in front of him. Several cold rays flashed, and almost instantly turned into spirit particles and dissipated into the air in front of Muramasa. Kachika Hibiki continued to walk forward on the spirit particles scattered by Killian without stopping, as if the road in front of him was an unstoppable noble road. However, the next moment, a shadow faintly enveloped Kachika Hibiki from behind, and a gentle and mellow voice sounded. "I found you, Kachika Hibiki, you really are not the least bit unexpected." Chapter 215 Where is Senju Cheng? "I found you, Kachika Hibiki." Kachika Hibiki's expression was startled, and his body subconsciously flashed forward to distance himself, and his eyes quickly looked behind him. He had a gentle face with black-framed glasses and a look that looked unusually ordinary. The only thing that was somewhat conspicuous was the 5th Division Lieutenant armband on his shoulder. Aiden Sosok did not mean to stop Kachika Hibaiki's actions, but just pushed his glasses and commented. Feeling threatened, so you retreated subconsciously? The cowardly heart that can't be concealed by the arrogant appearance. What a stupid and pathetic man. 5th Division Vice Captain Aiden Sosok. As Kachika Hibaiki saw the person clearly, his expression that seemed a little shocked and surprised relaxed a lot. Just a vice captain. Oh, Kachika Hibaiki then looked at Ichimura Jin, who appeared beside Aiden Sosok a little slower, and corrected him. Is there another genius third seat? Ichimura Jin said with narrowed eyes. Ah, Kachika Hibaiki, even if you praise me like this, it's meaningless. Shouldn't you consider running away? Aiden Sosok only smiled gently at Ichimura Jin's bad behavior, which seemed like he wanted to play with his enemy, and it seemed like he was secretly reminding Kachika Hibaiki to run away, thus causing a bigger commotion and attracting the attention of the Seireitei. As Muramasa returned to Kachika Hibaiki's side, Kachika Hibaiki's face also showed obvious contempt and arrogance, and said, Run away. Just a vice captain and a third seed, it's really ridiculous. Aiden Sosok responded to Kachika Hibaiki's ridicule with a gentle look and said, A frog in a well will never know the vastness of the sea, but will only think that he has seen the end of the sky. The next moment, before the voice fell, Kachika Hibaiki felt a sudden blur in front of his eyes, as if a breeze flashed by his side, and his chest hurt. Puff as blood splashed on the chest, a sound without any fluctuations floated behind Kachika Hibaiki. Are you right? Kachika Hibaiki. Kachika Hibaiki covered his chest in disbelief, and his eyes turned with difficulty to look at the figure behind him who seemed to be still ordinary. A mere deputy captain, how could the instant step be so fast? The next moment, a sharp pain came from his chest, and it seemed that in the blink of an eye, most of Kachika Hibaiki's strength was drained away, causing Kachika Hibaiki's originally proudly standing body to half-kneel on the ground, gasping for breath. Muramasa, who was originally standing on the other side of Kachika Hibaiki and had the strength of a captain-level Shinigami, just reacted and looked at the injured Kachika Hibaiki half-kneeling on the ground in shock, and Aiden Sosok, who seemed to have never even drawn his sword. No, he really didn't draw his sword. Muramasa looked at Aiden Sosok's hanging fingers, one of which was stained with blood that was still steaming. That was a finger strike, it pierced Kachika Hibaiki's chest directly. What kind of spiritual body strength would be needed to perform this hand-to-hand combat technique in an instant? Shock, fear, and terror, Muramasa, who always thought that he could restrain all the Shinigami, was now facing this ordinary man in front of him, and was so intimidated that he had no courage to attack. As a zanpakutō that is not held by the owner himself, this is undoubtedly a wise choice. Aiden Sosok turned around slowly, but his gentle eyes did not even look at Muramasa, but only looked down at Kachika Hibaiki who was half-kneeling in front of him, and said, It's a pity to forcefully break your world of self-satisfaction, but in this way, I think you can answer my questions more rigorously, right? Ichimura Jin witnessed the situation that Aiden Sosok completely controlled with his every move, and Ichimura Jin, who understood Aiden Sosok's purpose, had a slightly more imperceptible gloom on his face. Although Kachika Hibaiki's performance in front of Aiden Sosok was completely powerless, Ichimura Jin was also very clear that Kachika Hibaiki's zanpakutō ability was a natural nemesis for the Shinigami. I can't let Aiden Sosok achieve his goal. Ichimura Jin's narrowed eyes turned and looked at a killian that was quite close to Aiden Sosok. Shoot it, God gun. The next moment, a white light flashed across the sky from Ichimura Jin's hand, and instantly pierced through the mask of the killian at an astonishing speed. With the zanpakutō God gun stroke, the entire huge killian was split in two. Aiden Sosok subconsciously glanced at Ichimura Jin at this exaggerated scene. After all, we can't let a mere killian affect Vice Captain Aiden. Ichimura Jin responded to Aiden Sosok with a smile. Aiden Sosok nodded and said, Jin, your loyalty is commendable. Then, Aiden Sosok continued to look down at Kachika Hibaiki in front of him, but asked a question that made Ichimura Jin a little stunned. So, Kachika Hibaiki, where is Vice Captain Senju Cheng? Ichimura Jin. Could it be that Aiden Sosok should be more concerned about the ability of zanpakutō Muramasa, or even what research he conducted by forcibly intimidating Muramasa with the ability to materialize through Kachika Hibaiki? The priority of the first question, Aiden Sosok actually asked about Makoto's whereabouts. After hearing this question, Kachika Hibaiki's originally somewhat flustered expression suddenly calmed down, and he slowly stood up with one hand covering the wound on his chest, and said, "Senju Makutō. I naturally sealed that guy up. If anything happens to me, no one in the world will be able to find his whereabouts." Aiden Sosok pushed his glasses and said, "In fact, after a little contact with you, I was disappointed as expected. A man of your level does not have the ability to coerce Makutō-kun, let alone forcibly kidnap and seal Makutō-kun. Perhaps, Makutō-kun also realized something interesting in you, so he had some playful thoughts. Of course, it is also possible that Makutō-kun still has some special unknown purpose, but no matter what, the name of Kachika Hibaiki is not qualified to threaten Makutō-kun." Aiden Sosok's series of gentle comments that seemed to be stating facts, Kachika Hibaiki's face almost showed a look of shame and anger. A mere vice captain of the 5th Division, who was just a little faster in instant step, is so arrogant. After a pause, Kachika Hibaiki's face became more distorted. "It seems that Jinglingtang has completely ignored my advice. In this case, Jinglingtang should be prepared to bear my revenge in Senju Makutō's body." Chapter 216. Masked Legion participates. What a stupid idea. Do you still think you have the possibility of escaping? Aiden Sosok asked. Kachika Hibaiki turned his eyes and revealed a smug look. That's a pity. This time is enough for me to take away the power of your zanpakutō. The water-type zanpakutō. Kyuka-switjetsu. The straight-cutting zanpakutō. Divine Spear. As Kachika Hibaiki finished speaking, Muramasa's body emitted invisible waves, and two figures suddenly appeared beside Kachika Hibaiki. One of the figures seemed to be covered by mist, transparent and illusory, as if it was difficult to distinguish. The other figure was a petite figure completely shrouded in a white cloak. Obviously, this was undoubtedly the zanpakutō. Kyuka-switjetsu and zanpakutō. Divine Spear, under the influence of Muramasa's power, rebelling against the god of death in a materialized form. Kachika Hibaiki slowly spread his hands on both sides and spoke arrogantly. The power of the god of death is the power of the zanpakutō. Now, your power is completely in my hands. Then, Kachika Hibaiki waved his hand and ordered. Kill your original master and vent your accumulated resentment and anger. As Kachika Hibaiki finished speaking, the Divine Spear, which was covered in a white cloak, suddenly released its power and aimed directly at Ichimura Jin, who was standing far away to watch the show. Ichimura Jin turned his head slightly, and the zanpakutō, which was like a white light, passed by his ear dangerously, and then shouted to Aiden Sosok from a distance. "Ah, hey, it's worthy at being a Divine Spear. Did you really want to kill me at that moment? Sorry, Vice Captain Aizen, it seems that I am in trouble too, and I can't help you." Aiden Sosok smiled disapprovingly at this, and his eyes with a bit of scrutiny fell on the illusory and unreal physical zanpakutō, Kyuka-switjetsu, which was slowly approaching in front of him. The physical body of the god spear also showed an extremely fast speed and appeared in front of Ichimura Jin, bursting out with a terrifying speed and constantly attacking Ichimura Jin. Ichimura Jin. The voice full of resentment also kept coming from under the white cloak. Ichimura Jin kept retreating and dodging the attack of the god spear, showing his remarkable agility, and his smiling expression did not change at all. "God Spear, do you hate me so much?" "Of course." God Spear asked with a gnashing voice. "Why? Why? Why did you forcibly separate a part of me? I just wanted to protect you, why did you forcibly divide me?" Ding! The next moment, the zanpakutō in Ichimura Jin's hand stabbed out, and the tips of the two identical zanpakutōs accurately touched each other. Then, Ichimura Jin's eyes widened slightly, as if he looked through the white cloak directly at the true face of the god spear hidden in it, and then spoke softly. "Because, I also have someone I want to protect at all costs. If that's the feeling, can you understand me, Shinkai-ang?" The materialized Shinkai-ang seemed to be stunned for a moment, and then his tone became more and more excited and resentful. "How can you understand? The only person I want to protect is you. In this case, how can I give you enough power to protect yourself?" Then, Shinkai-ang burst out a series of high-speed stabs again, causing Ichimura Jin to retreat again and again. Seeing this scene in the eyes of Kachika Hibaiki, there is no doubt that Kachika Hibaiki's eyes are full of pride. That's right. Only the zanpakutō itself knows best and can best exert its own power. The original owner is not a match for the fully exerted zanpakutō. Then, Kachika Hibaiki turned his eyes and looked at Aiden Sosok and Kyuka-switjetsu, who seemed to be confronting each other. However, just when Kachika Hibaiki thought that Kagome Suigetsu could completely suppress Aizen Sosok's zanpakutō flashed out, and the illusory figure formed by Kagome Suigetsu was cut in half instantly without any resistance. How is it possible? Kachika Hibaiki exclaimed almost subconsciously. What's so surprising about this? There may be a lower limit difference in the ability of zanpakutō, but the strength of zanpakutō will always be determined by the god of death itself. Aizen Sosok said gently, and the figure approaching on the other side exuded a sense of oppression that made Kachika Hibaiki terrified. Especially Aizen Sosok's condescending look, which almost made Kachika Hibaiki retreat instinctively. At this moment, a series of figures suddenly broke into the battle and stopped on both sides of Aizen Sosok and Kachika Hibaiki. Mako Hirako, Ryojiro Hogamai, Kenshin Gurumei, Heiku Kanamai, Lisa Yamura, all the masked core members are here. Hey, Aizen, long time no see. Do you feel uncomfortable without me as your captain? Mako Hirako greeted Aizen Sosok in a seemingly nonchalant manner. Her sharp and angry eyes and the zanpakutō that was pointed at Aizen Sosok all showed Mako Hirako's attitude. Oh? So it's Captain Hirako who hid like a mouse. It's a bit uncomfortable, but I have already submitted an application for promotion to captain to the 1st Squadron, Aizen Sosok answered calmly. And it's great to see Captain Hirako still so energetic now. It means that Captain Hirako has successfully overcome some of the boundaries between Shinigami and Hollows. As Aizen Sosok said this, the faces of the masked core members present all showed angry expressions. Sure enough, Aizen, this is all related to you, right? Hirako Mako asked angrily. Aizen Sosok pushed his glasses and replied with a smile. Shouldn't you thank me? I have brought you to a new realm that you could not imagine in the past. Aizen. For a moment, hearing Aizen Sosok's words that were almost equivalent to admitting, huge spiritual pressures burst out from the members of the masked core, and pairs of angry and somewhat red eyes stared at Aizen Sosok. Thank you. For the masked core, this is undoubtedly a more twisted experiment than secretly changing their sex. Shinigami and Hollows, they are completely different races. But Aizen Sosok turned them into aliens between Shinigami and Hollows. Go to hell, you bastard, Seireitei, who has the most impulsive and hot temper, took the lead. The hideous hollow mask appeared, and the zanpakutō was released. He exuded spiritual pressure comparable to that of the captain and chopped down with his zanpakutō in both hands. Chapter 217. Sincereity's Focus. Boom. Aizen Sosok casually raised his zanpakutō to block the attack of Seireitei, and said in a playful tone. It's really interesting. You said you disliked this power, but now you are very skilled in using it. Who likes this power? I just want you, a bastard, to die under this power. Seireitei roared, and the machete-like zanpakutō in his hand slashed towards Aizen Sosok in another direction again. However, in the incredible eyes of the other members of the masked core, Aizen Sosok simply raised his empty left hand lightly, and then pinched between two fingers, and just like that, he clamped the zanpakutō of Seireitei, whose spiritual pressure was comparable to that of the captain. Then, Aizen Sosok smiled and swung the zanpakutō in his hand towards Seireitei in mid-air. Puff. A large piece of blood splattered. The evolved ants jumped up in front of the dragon, but they couldn't even dodge. What a stupid act, as Aizen Sosok's light voice sounded. Seireitei felt as if everything was getting farther away, and even those familiar calls seemed to be getting farther and farther away. Hiri, damn, Aizen Sosok is so strong. Everyone be careful, he is definitely not comparable to ordinary captains. Seireitei, hurry up, treat Hiri. For a moment, the moment Seireitei fell, the rest of the masked core members also instantly completed their hollowification and zanpakutō release, and all rushed towards Aizen Sosok. And just when Aizen Sosok and the masked core members were fighting in a group, and the amazing spiritual pressure bursts, the so-called ordinary captain-level spiritual pressure of Kachika Hibaiki and Muramasa seemed so inconspicuous. The amazing collision and battle made Kachika Hibaiki feel that he might not even be qualified to join the battle. Damn, how could he be so ridiculously strong? As Kachika Hibaiki quickly led Muramasa to retreat, he couldn't help but look at the figure who was perceived by a large number of captain-level strongmen, but still looked so calm and indifferent. Even at that moment, Kachika Hibaiki seemed to sense the playful look of Aizen Sosok, who looked at Kachika Hibaiki from a distance, looking at Aizen Sosok over many strongmen. This made Kachika Hibaiki subconsciously dare not look in the direction of Aizen Sosok again. He covered the bloody hole in his chest with his palm and used his full strength to use instant step to rush back in the direction of the villa. Senju Makotao. The Daisen Sasuke also cares about Senju Makotao, so Senju Makotao must be controlled. And just when Kachika Hibaiti had just moved away from Aizen Sasuke for a certain distance, an exaggerated barrier rose up with Aizen Sasuke as the center. This is, as a master who is also proficient in a large number of ghost arts, Kachika Hibaiti only took a glance and recognized that this was a very high-level ghost art barrier that could only be used by the great ghost masters of the ghost arts. Could it be that the two ghost masters, Wellington and Ashoda Hatagen, are here too? When Kachika Hibaiti thought of this, he couldn't help but speed up his steps a little more, knowing that this place would definitely become the center of a storm. Just as Kachika Hibaiti expected, the large number of Jillian hollows that appeared in Karakura town had already alarmed the Seireitei. The spiritual pressure fluctuations caused by the conflict between Kachika Hibaiti and Aizen Sasuke, as well as the appearance of the masked core, were like a bright moon in the dark night, and almost instantly attracted the attention of all the Shinigami around Karakura town. It was precisely because of this that Wellington and Ashoda Hatagen did not hesitate to construct a barrier to separate the battlefield, trapping Aizen Sasuke while blocking the captains around Karakura town from hindering the masked core. After all, in the eyes of the current Seireitei, the masked core is also an object that must be eliminated. In addition, the strange situation on the night of the hollowification incident made the masked core realize that Aizen Sasuke's zanpakutō ability is not as simple as he described, but should be able to create some kind of illusion. At the same time, in the gate that had just opened in Karakura town, a beautiful figure stepped out, holding a zanpakutō with a slightly exaggerated degree of curvature compared to the common zanpakutō in both hands. Yuna Hanaretsu. At the moment Yuna Hanaretsu appeared, the blood-colored spiritual pressure slowly dissipated, as if it was thick and covered behind Yuna Hanaretsu like blood plasma. Then, a secret mobile member with fear in his eyes and trembling all over appeared in front of Yuna Hanaretsu, and reported with a trembling voice. Captain Yuna, a target suspected to be Kachika Hibaiti has been found. Yuna Hanaretsu's eyelids drooped slightly, looking at the secret mobile member in front of him without raising his eyes, and asked softly. Where's Senju Makotao? The secret mobile member subconsciously lowered his head a little, swallowed his saliva, and then continued. Not yet, have they been found, but Captain Seireitei is already tracking the target suspected to be Kachika Hibaiti. Yuna Hanaretsu took a deep breath and slowly uttered two words. Led the way. Yes. At the same time, inside the villa, Senju Makotao stretched his slightly tired waist, then twisted his sore neck and took off the pair of disposable medical gloves slowly. Then, Senju Makotao looked far away in the direction of the center of Karakura town. The emergence of amazing spiritual pressures naturally could not be hidden from Senju Makotao's perception. Especially through the bracelet in Ichimura Jin's hand, Senju Makotao had a perfect grasp of what happened to Aizen Sasuke. Using the bait to attract the hollow group, attracting a large number of Jillians to appear in Karakura town was already a troublesome matter, and what made Senju Makotao feel even more headache was the collision between Aizen Sasuke and the masked army. You know, the masked core is the main source of spiritual power accumulated by Senju Makotao's forest seed. Any loss of one will make Senju Makotao sad for a long time. However, at the beginning of the conflict between Aizen Sasuke and the masked core, Senju Makotao's research on the spirit of Senbon Bancho was at an important note. Moreover, Senju Makotao also knew that if he missed this opportunity, he would probably have a hard time studying this kind of spiritual material in the future. Therefore, the disturbances from the outside world did not interfere with Senju Makotao's concentration. When he was beaten to a pulp in Karakura town, Senju Makotao always kept his focus on Senbon Bancho and worked hard, gaining a deep understanding of Senbon Bancho bit by bit, striving to study Senbon Bancho thoroughly from head to toe. However, although Senju Makotao's research speed on spirits is notoriously fast, it has only been barely completed so far. At this time, Senbon Xiang, who was helping to watch the wind outside the house, flew in from the window and reminded him urgently. Master Cheng-ge, hurry up, Kachika Hibaiti is coming back soon. Suddenly, Senju Makotao's expression became a little ugly. Senju Makotao didn't have time to put clothes on Senbon Bancho who was lying in front of him. Chapter 218. All things in the world are perverted. Back. Senju Makotao panicked, and suddenly had a thrilling feeling of being caught by his parents for doing something bad at home. Of course, the source of this feeling was not Kachika Hibaiti. Senju Cheng was panicking because if Kachika Hibaiki caught him, once Senbon Sakura knew about it, Senju Cheng really didn't know how to face Kachika Byakuya in the future. It couldn't be possible, Senju Cheng explained to Kachika Byakuya. Byakuya-kun, I'm sorry, when I was kidnapped as a hostage, I accidentally, unintentionally, and took Senbon Sakura away clean and studied it thoroughly. This is also a research that I have to do for the woman you love, Hiza. Byakuya-kun should be able to understand me, right? Immediately, Senju Cheng hurried forward and tried to put on the armor for Senbon Sakura again. However, undressing and dressing are not difficult things. In addition, as a professional doctor of the 4th Division, Makoto Senju is usually skilled in taking off clothes because he helps patients take off some clothes when seeing a doctor, but Makoto Senju has never had the experience of helping others put on clothes. Generally speaking, after Makoto Senju helps doctors and patients with injections, he lets them pull up their pants and leave. Makoto Senju never provides further services. Wait, what is this piece of white cloth used for? What are these things? How do I wear these strips? Looking at the pile of things that look like ancient samurai costumes of Senbon Sakura, and holding the thing that seems to be a bell band in his hand, Makoto Senbon was completely confused, and he only hated that he didn't help Senbon Sakura take off her armor a little slower, more carefully, and pay more attention to details. Subconsciously, Makoto Senbon cast an inquiring look at Senbon Xiang, who was also considered a woman. But the next moment, Makoto Senbon realized that he was just flirting with a blind man. With Senbon Xiang's unambitious physique, how could he use these cumbersome things? Obviously, he would not have those 2 points of experience. In an instant, Senju Cheng was completely numb when he saw Senbon Sakura lying in front of him. This scene would make anyone who saw it misunderstand Senju Cheng, a pure and upright doctor. What should I do? Several ideas quickly emerged in Senju Cheng's mind. Kill Senbon Sakura and destroy the body, kill Kachika Hibaiki, and then plant the stakes on the dead. Anyway, the dead will not defend themselves. But these are undoubtedly risky. Suddenly, Senju Cheng paused, and his head suddenly turned to look in the direction of Kachika Hibaiki. More importantly, not far behind Kachika Hibaiki, Senju Cheng sensed Seireitei's forest seed. Kachika Hibaiki was completely exposed. Seireitei had been following Kachika Hibaiki. This also greatly shortened the range of choices that Senju Cheng could make. Senju Cheng looked at Senbon Xiang, a gentle smile appeared on his face, and said, Senbon Xiang, how does the master treat you normally? Pretty average. Senbon Xiang asked cautiously. However, Senju Cheng said as if he had heard it wrongly. Since it's pretty good, this time it's time for Senju Cheng to repay his gratitude. Senbon Xiang. Outside the villa, Kachika Cheng looked at the barrier that was still intact, and his expression relaxed a little. The barrier was not destroyed, which meant that Senju Cheng was still inside the barrier, and the important bargaining chips held by Kachika Cheng were not lost. However, as Kachika Cheng entered the barrier and pushed open the door of the villa, what came into view was Senju Cheng lying in the living room covered in blood. The entire living room was also in a mess, as if it had been through a battle. Kachika Cheng. At this moment, Kachika Cheng almost felt his scalp tingling. What happened? Could Senju Cheng be killed? Then, Kachika Hibaiki stepped forward and helped up Senju Cheng, who happened to be lying on the damaged sofa in a quite comfortable posture. Kachika Hibaiki saw that Senju Cheng's face was even paler than his who was stabbed, and his breathing was also abnormally light, and the whole person seemed to be in a coma. Hey, Makoto. Makoto. Under Kachika Hibaiki's repeated calls, Senju Cheng finally woke up slowly and opened his somewhat confused eyes. The next moment, before Kachika Hibaiki could speak, Senju Cheng seemed to remember something and said in a hurry. Quick, Hibaiki, stop Senbon Xiang. What? Kachika Hibaiki asked subconsciously. Senbon Xiang has a personality that is exactly the opposite of its healing ability. It is perverted and bloodthirsty, and loves to torture and kill enemies. Senju Cheng grabbed Kachika Hibaiki's wrist with one hand and said anxiously. Not long after you and Muramasa left, I didn't expect that Senbon Xiang couldn't hold back and attacked Senbon Sakura. I tried to stop its evil behavior, but I was tortured and fainted. Hurry, Senbon Xiang took Senbon Sakura to the second floor. It should be too late to stop it now. Kachika Hibaiki looked at the anxious sincerity between Senju Makoto's eyebrows, exuding pure concern that seemed to come from the heart, but subconsciously believed Senju Makoto's words. Although for Kachika Hibaiki now, controlling Senju Makoto is the most important thing. But Senbon Sakura is a pretty good fighting force, and Kachika Hibaiki doesn't want to see Senbon Sakura die in the internal fight between Zanpakutō. Then, Kachika Hibaiki simply judged Senju Makoto's injuries. His right hand was broken, there were multiple open wounds on his body, half of his body was stained with blood, and his left leg was twisted. It was also a look of cruel torture, which invisibly proved that Shinigami Saibang's character really liked torture. With this thought, Kachika Hibaiki quickly ran up to the second floor of the villa, leaving Senju Makoto lying on the sofa to rest for a while. Senju Makoto watched Kachika Hibaiki's back disappear at the corner of the second floor, glanced around, and frowned. "Where's Muramasa?" According to the information that Senju Makoto learned from the bracelet on Ichimura Jin's wrist, Kachika Hibaiki should have escaped with Muramasa, so why was Kachika Hibaiki alone? Kachika Hibaiki ran straight to the second floor and pushed open the door of the room that originally belonged to Senju Makoto. What came into view was Shinigami Saibang, whose body was extended with green grass tentacles similar to vines, and was about to completely remove the last layer of clothes on Senbon Sakura. What shocked Kachika Hibaiki was the excitement on Shinigami Saibang's face, as if he was a pervert who was about to enjoy some prey. For a moment, Kachika Hibaiki, who was still a little skeptical, completely believed what Senju Makoto said, and then controlled the power of his zanpakutō to forcibly stop Senbon Bancho's actions. Stop. Chapter 219 The Brilliant Glory of Humanity. Perhaps, the power of Muramasa is just a strong suggestion and hypnosis for other zanpakutō souls, but it is impossible to completely control the obsession and personality of zanpakutō souls. The nature of Muramasa's power is more inclined to expand certain obsessions of other zanpakutō souls through suggestion and hypnosis, so as to force the zanpakutō souls to conflict with their original owners. However, the spiritual bodies of other zanpakutō souls are formed based on the power of Muramasa. Therefore, after Kachika Hibaiki used the power of zanpakutō, it was very easy to stop the actions of other materialized zanpakutō. Then, Kachika Hibaiki temporarily controlled the excessive behavior of Shinigami Saibang, and then woke up Senbon Sakura, who was also unconscious. Of course, Kachika Hibaiki was also a little surprised that Senbon Sakura's true face turned out to be a beautiful and delicate woman. "Oh, it turns out that Byakuya is so weak deep down in his heart," Kachika Hibaiki said with a mocking tone, and then he simply explained to Senbon Sakura, who was slowly waking up, and then motioned for Senbon Sakura to quickly put on the armor again. In an instant, Senbon Sakura's face was extremely ugly, and she seemed to vaguely remember a little bit of her feelings during the coma. Someone was talking, the armor was peeled off, unexpectedly. Actually, if Kachika Hibaiki hadn't been there, Senbon Sakura, who was ashamed and angry, might not have been able to help but challenge Shinigami Saibang to a samurai duel to wash away the shame that had happened to her. As Kachika Hibaiki took Senbon Sakura and Shinigami Saibang downstairs, Senju Makoto half sat up with his left hand, and when he saw that Senbon Sakura seemed to be safe and sound, a relieved expression appeared on his face. "Mr. Makoto." Senbon Sakura, who had been subconsciously angry at for Senbon's behavior, could not help but be moved. Senbon Sakura then smiled gently and said, "Senbon Sakura, I'm so glad you're okay." "I'm sorry," Senbon Sakura was raised wrongly. "I didn't expect her to be so bold after she materialized." Senbon Sakura. Senbon Sakura thought about the whole thing, especially Senbon Saku's continuous peeping for several days, which showed that all this was premeditated by Senbon Saku. As for Senbon Saku, in order to protect himself, he was tortured into this state by his own zanpakutō. For a moment, Senbon Sakura even felt that the little grievance she suffered in dignity was not worth mentioning compared to the burden that Senbon Saku was physically bearing. Moreover, Senbon Sakura felt that some parts of her body felt strange, but there was no problem overall. It was probably just a stress response caused by psychological effects. "Mr. Makoto, you should take a break, it's okay. I was often tortured and killed by Shinigami Saibang in the spiritual space before, but I didn't expect that I could still react to reality now." After a pause, Senju Makoto continued. "Perhaps, this can't be blamed too much on Shinigami Saibang. After all, Shinigami Saibang was originally just a healing zanpakutō, but I forcibly developed the ability of the offensive and defensive sides because of my selfish desires, which led to the change of Shinigami Saibang and his resentment towards me. facing Senju Cheng's serious injury and bloody, but still gentle and cheerful smile. Not to mention Senbon Bancho, even Hibiki couldn't help but ask with some emotion. Mr. Makoto, you can still maintain this personality when facing such a bad zanpakutō in the spiritual space. It's nothing. The world kissed me with pain, and I was just going to repay it with a song. For a moment, Hibiki and Senbon Bancho looked at Senju Makoto lying on the sofa with blood all over his body, as if they saw a perfect person emitting the brilliant light of humanity. What a generous and gentle heart. Even Hibiki, who originally planned to seal Senju Makoto with ghost arts to avoid accidents and force him to stay with him, felt a little compassion. Hijacking such a man, does it really not go against his original intention? Hibiki's expression fell into a moment of silence and entanglement, then slowly raised his head and looked at Senju Makoto and said, Ms. Makoto, the Shinigami of the 13th Gotti Squad are already looking for you, and it shouldn't take long for them to find this place. Senju Makoto made an expression of surprise and shock on the surface, but he couldn't help but complain in his heart. It's not that it won't take long, but they're already outside the villa, and the little girl Seireitei is already calling for people. According to Senju Makoto's estimation, the Seireitei, who was quite familiar with Hibiki's ability, should have prepared a team to restrain Hibiki, waiting to bury Hibiki. After all, it is true that Hibiki's zanpakutō is the nemesis of almost all zanpakutōs, but its flaws are also very obvious. Although the zanpakutō itself can also materialize and exert the combat power of the captain level, it has almost no advantage against opponents who do not use zanpakutōs. And with the power of the Seireitei, it is still very easy to put together a team that can suppress the captain level Shinigami without relying on zanpakutōs. Therefore, according to Senju Makoto's judgment, perhaps Seireitei is shaking up special teams similar to those of the Kidmushu to take action. However, as Hibiki said the next sentence, Senju Makoto's expression could not help but reveal a bit of astonishment. Makoto-kun, why don't you stay in the villa and wait for the Shinigami of the Seireitei to pick you up? Senju Makoto. Wait, Hibiki has awakened his conscience and is planning to whitewash himself. But in this way, doesn't Senju Makoto's pretending to be injured lack the most important persuasiveness? Even, Seireitei might even suspect that Makoto Senju is in collusion with Hibiki, otherwise there is no reason for Hibiki to let Makoto Senju go. No. I can't let Hibiki drag me down like this. Besides, how can I come when I want and leave when I want? Hibiki Makoto Senju's thoughts turned, his brows slightly frowned, and he asked with concern for Hibiki. Hibiki-kun, if you do this, can you escape Seireitei's pursuit? Without a doubt, this sentence brought Hibiki back to reality from the emotional impulse of that moment. Especially after seeing Sasuke's exaggerated fighting power with his own eyes, Hibiki undoubtedly knew that if he didn't have Makoto Senju in his hands, he would not even have room for negotiation in front of Sasuke. And as Hibiki's evil thoughts grew again, a hideous and distorted look flashed across his face and he said, That's right, it seems that I can only trouble Makoto-kun to go with me again. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 220 Unforgivable. Outside the villa, Senju Makoto's guess was accurate. After confirming that Hibiki had entered the villa covered by a barrier, Seireitei wanted to rush in to check on Senju Makoto's safety. However, Seireitei's rationality and calmness eventually made her choose to call for help first. After all, according to the known information, in addition to Hibiki's ability to restrain his zanpakutō, he himself was also a powerful Shinigami who had mastered Bankai. Seireitei knew very well that she was no match for such an enemy. Power. While Seireitei was calling for help, she stared at the villa in front of her, and her desire for power suddenly increased several times. Makoto was so close, but without power, she couldn't even confirm his safety. Without power, she couldn't hold anything. At this moment, the barrier that Seireitei was staring at opened, and several figures came out of it. Kachika Hibiki and the zanpakutō that had turned against her according to Byakuya Kachika, the Senbon Senbon Bancho and Seireitei's nervous eyes swept around, and finally landed on the figure on the stretcher being dragged by Senbon Sakura, with a lot of bandages wrapped around his body and his face unclear. Damn it. In an instant, Seireitei felt her head heat up, and nameless anger rushed into her brain. She no longer cared about anything else, and her figure turned into a residual shadow and rushed straight to Senju Makoto's position. However, although Seireitei's instant step level was not inferior to that of an ordinary captain, she was still intercepted by Kachika Hibiki halfway. Bang! After a brief confrontation, Seireitei was directly forced back by Kachika Hibiki's spiritual pressure. Secret Mobile Team. Looking at Seireitei's special outfit, Kachika Hibiki couldn't help but be shocked. Seireitei stared at Kachika Hibiki with murderous intent and shouted, "Give Makoto back to me." Kachika Hibiki's expression twitched fiercely. Knowing that he had been completely exposed, he had no intention of talking nonsense with Seireitei and rushed directly towards Seireitei. Bang, 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 bang. Although Seireitei's white-handed fighting skills were superb, the difference in spiritual pressure made Kachika Hibiki bear part of the attack and kicked Seireitei away with one kick. Sui. B. Makoto Senju, who was lying on the stretcher, seemed to raise his hand with some difficulty and shouted anxiously and concernedly. "Go, Seireitei, don't worry about me, I'm fine." No. Seireitei listened to the familiar and weak voice, her eyes were completely red, and she said angrily, "How? I actually hurt Makoto like this, it's unforgivable. Unforgivable. Unforgivable." Kachika Hibiki heard this and opened his mouth subconsciously, wanting to explain, but, hey, it seems that Makoto Senju's injury is really related to him. After all, if Muramasa hadn't been able to materialize Shinigami Xiang, Senju Makoto wouldn't have been seriously injured for stopping Shinigami Xiang from abusing Senbon Sakura. Then, even though Seireitei knew that the intelligence mentioned that she shouldn't easily release her zanpakutō in front of Kachika Hibiki, she should try to delay the speed at which his zanpakutō sword spirit was affected and betrayed. However, at this moment, Seireitei had only one thought in her mind. Kill Kachika Hibiki and take back Makoto-kun. Kill all enemies. Sparrowfly. In an instant, the zanpakutō in Seireitei's hand turned into a golden and gorgeous finger ring, and Seireitei turned into a residual image and pounced on Kachika Hibiki again. However, even though Seireitei released her zanpakutō, her instant step and Byakuya levels were not inferior to Kachika Hibiki at all, but the huge gap in spiritual pressure undoubtedly caused Seireitei to be blown away again. Sui-feng. That's enough. Hurry up and leave. Hearing the concerned voice coming into her ears again, Seireitei's half-kneeling hands supporting the ground were trembling slightly. As Kachika Hibiki realized that Seireitei was difficult to deal with, he narrowed his eyes and signaled Senbon Sakura and Shinigami Xiang to take Senju Makoto away first, with a hint of murderous intent in his eyes. With Seireitei's instant step speed, it was obviously not an easy task to get rid of her. And no other Shinigami had appeared so far, which meant that only the secret mobile member had noticed her trace. However, just when Kachika Hibiki had completely developed murderous intentions towards Seireitei looked at Senju Makoto's figure being taken away and Kachika Hibiki standing in front of her. Seireitei only felt that time seemed to be slowing down, the familiar voice of zanpakutō Songfon seemed to be ringing from far to near again, and it was getting clearer and clearer. At this moment, Seireitei's ears suddenly rang with a gentle voice that contained infinite murderous intent, but it made Seireitei break away from the strange state of the moment. "Where are you going to take my disciple?" The next moment, a fragrant breeze blew by, and the word "4" behind the captain of the 4th Division, Yuze, appeared in front of Seireitei. "Captain Unohana." Seireitei was startled at first, then her face showed ecstasy, and she shouted hurriedly, "Captain Unohana, hurry up, Kachika Hibiki is going to take Makoto away, and it seems that Makoto has been treated so cruelly that his whole body is covered with bandages." Unohana Retsu's slightly drooping scary eyes raised, looking past Kachika Hibiki to Senju Makoto on the stretcher pulled by Senbon Sakura. He was wrapped in bandages all over, and there was faint bleeding in many places. The shape of his right arm and left calf was obviously unnatural. In an instant, Unohana Retsu's chest rose and fell unconsciously, and the smile on his face that he usually maintained was completely cold. However, although Kachika Hibaiki was the son-in-law of the Kachika family and a member of the first team, he was obviously not very experienced and did not know about Yuna Hanaretsu's past. Although, the aura that Yuna Hanaretsu exuded at this moment was quite shocking, and it seemed as if scarlet blood could be seen oozing out of Yuna Hanaretsu, Kachika Hibaiki did not retreat in fear for a mere captain of the healing squad. "You are here for an illusion-type zanpakutō, right? It's okay, just a captain of the 4th squad," just as Kachika Hibaiki secretly commented in his heart. Senbon Bancho, who fully understood the terrifying extent of Yuna Hanaretsu, almost did not hesitate to leave Kachika Hibaiki and Senbon Sakura behind, fearing that Yuna Hanaretsu would get excited and peel him on the spot. "Seireitei, you did a good job." Yuna Hanaretsu slowly grasped the handle of the zanpakutō with one hand, and said in a calm voice that seemed to have no emotion at all. "Leave the rest to me. No one can take Makutō away from me." Hearing this, Kachika Hibaiki, who originally felt a little bit of instinctive fear when facing Yuna Hanaretsu, suddenly seemed to sense something, raised his chin slightly, looked at Yuna Hanaretsu with contempt, and said confidently, "Just you." Chapter 221 9-1, The advantage is in my hands. Just you. As Kachika Hibaiki's confident and arrogant answer came out, Senju Makutō couldn't help but be shocked. Too brave. Whose general is this, and he is so brave? And Yuna Hanaretsu's eyes, which were originally slightly drooping as if they had no emotion at all, also showed a little ripple, and he said with a hint of emotion, "No one has said this to me for thousands of years." Interesting. As Yuna Hanaretsu's voice fell, Yuna Hanaretsu's right hand holding the handle of the zanpakutō slowly raised up, and the blade with the cold light was pulled out. In an instant, Yuna Hanaretsu's already extremely terrifying momentum changed again, and the amazing blood-colored spiritual pressure exploded with Yuna Hanaretsu as the center. Bloody. Powerful. Kachika Hibaiki felt the extreme oppression of the amazing spiritual pressure in front of him, and his expression froze, and he felt that his brain was blank for a moment. This feeling is like facing Captain General Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni. Isn't he the captain of the medical division who is not good at fighting? Why? Why does he have such a shocking spiritual pressure? Kachika Hibaiki's eyes widened, and he felt that his understanding of the 13th Gotti division seemed to have become unusually unfamiliar. No, with such spiritual pressure that is far beyond the level of ordinary captains, why would he stay in a medical division as the captain? The amazingly curved zanpakutō in Yuna Hanaretsu's hand drew an arc as Yuna Hanaretsu's arm span, as if he was about to start killing. Then he raised his head slightly and spoke. "Kachika Hibaiki, I will kill you. It has nothing to do with whether you have violated the rules of the 13th Gotti division. It's just that you touched something that you shouldn't have touched." As Yuna Hanaretsu's voice fell, Yuna Hanaretsu's murderous intent, which was no longer concealed, completely burst out. The murderous intent was shockingly pure, and it was terrifyingly pure. Although Yuna Hanaretsu had not yet swung his sword, under the seemingly calm gaze of Yuna Hanaretsu, Kachika Hibaiki seemed to feel countless sharp blades against his spirit. Fear almost uncontrollably grew, causing Kachika Hibaiki's originally arrogant and contemptuous expression to completely turn into fear, and then he shouted in panic, "Muramasa!" The next moment, as if hearing Kachika Hibaiki's call, Muramasa's figure quickly appeared beside Kachika Hibaiki, and then blocked in front of Kachika Hibaiki. "Master, please rest assured." Yuna Hanaretsu seemed to sense something, and his eyes slowly turned to look to the side. 8 strange-looking figures who maintained their spirits and exuded powerful spiritual pressure but were not wearing Shinigami costumes stood on the building on one side. Moreover, these figures clearly held one zanpakutō after another in their hands, which were not unfamiliar to Yuna Hanaretsu. Nifu, Dwandifan, Jinchiluo, Yudasha, Taichi and Yinglong, etc. As these figures appeared, Makutō Senju also reacted instantly. Muramasa had not appeared before, and he must have followed the orders of Kachika Hibaiki and lurked on one side when the masked corps was fighting with Aizen Sosok. Then, taking advantage of the fact that the masked corps members were not prepared to release the power of zanpakutō, Muramasa easily confirmed the location of the sword spirits and lured a large number of zanpakutō sword spirits to materialize at one time. "Yuna Hana teacher, be careful, these are all materialized zanpakutō," Makutō Senju subconsciously reminded Yuna Hanaretsu. After all, this is different from the holoification incident when Yuna Hanaretsu easily suppressed a large number of holo captains. At the time, the hollowed captains lost their self-awareness and acted completely on instinct, but the opponent at this moment is the materialization of zanpakutō sword spirits. The most troublesome thing is that the zanpakutō sword spirits can easily use their original abilities. Under the combined influence of multiple zanpakutō abilities, it is completely impossible to defend against. Even Unohana-sensei would probably cause some trouble, right? As Muramasa arrived with the physical manifestation of his zanpakutō spirits, Kachika Hibiki's expression calmed down again, and he even put his hands in his pockets, as if he didn't know what an opponent was. Counting Senbon Sakura and Moira, Kachika Hibiki looked around and was somewhat surprised to find that Moira Wonksayang had completely disappeared. But even if we exclude Moira Wonksayang, counting Senbon Sakura and Muramasa himself, 9-1, the advantage is mine. Kachika Hibiki said lightly, still keeping his hands in his pockets. I've said before, I only need to make a slight move. There's no opponent among the Shinigami. You're just the captain of the 4th Division. You want to take my hostages? Humph, do you really want to kill me? Go back and call all the captains. However, Senju Cheng, who wrapped himself up like a dumpling to pretend to be miserable, clearly saw a hint of excitement in Unohana-retsu's eyes. It was as if he had just pinched an ant casually, but accidentally found a fairly interesting toy. For a moment, Senju Cheng couldn't help but wail in his heart, Kachika Hibiki, I fucking called you big brother, don't say it again. If you continue to provoke Unohana teacher like this, and give her one toy after another to fight, I'm worried that Unohana teacher, who is excited about killing, will be stabbed by you. Of course, it's not that Senju Cheng doubts Kachika Hibiki's ability. In the zanpakutō soul core that Kachika Hibiki formed temporarily, meeting an ordinary captain is undoubtedly the result of crushing. Even veteran and powerful captains like Kukushansui, Yukita Jashiro, and Kachika Jinrin would probably be beaten and run away. But Unohana-sensei is really different, whether it's what Makoto Senju knows about Unohana-retsu's past or his own experience. Makoto Senju understands how terrifying Unohana-sensei is when he's fighting. However, Kachika Hibiki obviously doesn't know what Makoto Senju is thinking. 9-1 and all the zanpakutō spirits are at least vice-captain level, and there are captain-level zanpakutō spirits with Bankai abilities. How to lose? Kachika Hibiki, with his hands in his pockets, closed his eyes slightly and nodded. Then, Muramasa, who understood, pointed his finger at Unohana-retsu and ordered, kill. Immediately, all the materialized zanpakutō spirits instantly attacked Unohana-retsu, and all kinds of zanpakutō abilities were released. Shoot him. Divine Gun. Fall down. Nifu. Play. Kinsera. The words of liberation were heard one after another, and the spiritual pressure burst out and gathered, as if to completely submerge Unohana-retsu, who was still standing in a stance. Chapter 222. One Knife 1. Kachika Hibiki listened to the words of liberation, and although he did not look up at the battlefield, he had obviously anticipated the outcome of the battle. The next moment, Kachika Hibiki heard a clear sound of a sharp blade piercing through a spirit. It's over. So fast Kachika Hibiki sighed in his heart, and his mind began to think about the future. Of course, what Kachika Hibiki was thinking about was not where he was buried, but what he should do. Due to the conflict between the Masked Corps and Days and Sasuke, Kachika Hibiki unexpectedly obtained a large amount of materialized zanpakutō soul combat power. This made Kachika Hibiki's heart gradually swell up. Perhaps, there is still a gap in frontal combat power with the entire GOTY 13. However, Muramasa can constantly make the opponent's zanpakutō soul materialize and rebel during the battle. In other words, for Kachika Hibiki, as long as he is not defeated instantly, then under the continuous rise and fall, he may not be without the power to fight against the entire Seireitei. By then, I may be able to follow the example of Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni and form a new organization to take charge of the entire Seireitei and become the true king of the entire Seireitei. Thinking of this, Kachika Hibiki felt a surge of blood in his heart, as if he had found the direction of his future life. However, suddenly, the sound of spirits being pierced by blades rang out again, interrupting Kachika Hibiki's inner thoughts. This made Kachika Hibiki furious. However, as Kachika Hibiki raised his eyelids, everything he saw was completely different from what he had expected. Unohana-retsu was indeed covered in blood, but it was not Unohana-retsu's spirit that was pierced by his zanpakutō. Instead, at Unohana-retsu's feet, there were materialized zanpakutō souls that were pierced, cut in half, and had their heads cut off. This scene made Kachika Hibaiki shudder with fear, and made Senju Makoto feel a pity and regret. What good research materials, gone. Although Makoto Senju had already obtained the most important thing from Senbon Sakura, given the general rigor of experimental research, the more research materials the better. However, the zanpakutō spirits that Makoto Senju envied rushed towards Unohana Retsu like moths to a flame. One by one. Really one by one. Whether it was the so-called Vice Captain Shinigami level zanpakutō spirit or the Captain level zanpakutō spirit, in front of Unohana Retsu, there was no difference between the two, they were all one by one. This scene was incredible even for Makoto Senju, who had been affected by the interference of zanpakutō Nifu and zanpakutō King Seireitei. However, Unohana Retsu still completed the dance of killing in a beautiful and bloody manner, just like chopping melons and vegetables. The exaggerated liqueur zanpakutō was like a blood moon, and the secret dark sword hidden in the sleeve of the other hand was accurate and deadly. From a distance, Makoto Senju seemed to see Unohana Retsu dancing gracefully and beautifully, and bloody and krill blood flowers bloomed wherever he passed. Makoto Senju felt a little desperate. Is this the Unohana teacher who claimed to have mastered more than 8,000 sword styles in Soul Society and was once named Unohana 8,000 Styles? If Makoto Senju really wants to betray his teacher and destroy his ancestors in the future, what level must he reach to do it? Of course, this is just a hypothesis. No matter who asks, Makoto Senju absolutely believes that he is a pure and kind doctor who respects teachers. However, although both Kachika Hibaiki and Makoto Senju were desperate, their true inner feelings were very different. Gone. At the moment when Kachika Hibaiki opened his eyes and was stunned, the materialized zanpakutō Nifu and Taiji and King Klun were directly cut in half, and a large amount of blood fell like a bloody rain. Unohana Retsu, who was bathing in it, seemed to have a look of pleasure on his face, which made Kachika Hibaiki so frightened that all the pores on his body instinctively contracted. At this moment, of the materialized zanpakutō spirits that originally made Kachika Hibaiki's heart swell, only Muramasa and the Senbon Sakura and the divine spear that could attack from a distance were still alive. However, this undoubtedly did not give Kachika Hibaiki the slightest sense of security. He will die. He will die without a doubt. Kachika Hibaiki looked at the blood-soaked Unohana Retsu approaching him with elegant steps, and inexplicably recalled the plain words that Unohana Retsu had said before. I will kill you. Kachika Hibaiki retreated step by step in fear, shouting hysterically. Go. Muramasa, stop this monster for me. Muramasa's face, which usually looked extremely gloomy and terrifying, became fixed under Kachika Hibaiki's order, and he rushed towards Unohana Retsu with determination and madness. Just when Muramasa realized his mistake and launched a desperate attack, Kachika Hibaiki had no intention of fighting side by side with his zanpakutō. He retreated without hesitation and headed straight for Senju Makoto. Suddenly, Unohana Retsu, who noticed this scene, looked much colder. In a flash, Muramasa and Unohana Retsu crossed each other, puff. After the materialization, Muramasa, who was fully capable of captain-level skills, suddenly separated from his spirit body. His lower body still maintained the action of instant step, while his upper body smashed towards the ground in front of him by inertia. However, despite this, when Muramasa noticed Kachika Hibaiki's movements from the corner of his eyes, his rapidly dimming eyes burst out with the last light, and he stretched out his hand and pointed at the materialized Senbon Sakura and the divine spear. Stalker, we must buy time for our master. Under the influence of Muramasa's last remaining ability, Senbon Sakura and the divine spear frantically delayed Unohana Retsu from both sides. Cherry blossoms were flying all over the sky, and the fast and flashing magic spear was retracting and flashing back and forth. However, Unohana Retsu's movements did not stop at all. Unohana Retsu swung the zanpakutō in his hand and the dark sword hidden in his sleeve at the same time, and accurately cut off the magic spear with one blow. The cherry blossoms falling all over the sky did not touch Unohana Retsu at all, and he ran straight to the important green grass in his heart. However, the difference in distance between the two sides, in addition, Muramasa, Senbon Sakura and the magic spear caused some obstacles after all. Although Unohana Retsu's instant step speed was much faster than Kachika Hibaiki, she could only watch Kachika Hibaiki approach Senju Makoto little by little before her. There has never been such a moment before. Unohana Retsu resented that she had just indulged in killing. If she stood by Senju Makoto first, if his zanpakutō had the ability to attack from a distance. Finally, Unohana Retsu's flash step stopped 5 steps away from Senju Makoto, staring at Kachika Hibaiki's zanpakutō that was resting on Senju Makoto's neck. Chapter 223 Don't come over here. Don't come over here. Kachika Hiraiki panted heavily, and screamed in panic at the Unohana Retsu, who was almost 2 steps forward and could cut him. Looking at Kachika Hiraiki in front of him, Unohana Retsu's face was almost gloomier than ever before, and the murderous intent permeating his body was so strong that it seemed to be materialized and emanated from his body. Behind Unohana Retsu, Muramasa watched Kachika Hiraiki successfully hijack Senju Cheng, and the last bit of light in his eyes slowly faded as his upper body fell to the ground. Master, it's great to be able to help you in the end. As the last bit of consciousness that Muramasa maintained dissipated, the materialized Senbon Bancho and the spirit of the divine spear also quickly dissipated. However, Kachika Hiraiki did not even turn his eyes for a moment to see Muramasa's death, but just stared at Unohana Retsu and roared. Don't come over here. Retreat, retreat. Unohana Retsu seemed to relax his hands and hung them on both sides, and then spoke. Give Makoto back to me, I won't kill you. However, under the influence of Unohana Retsu's murderous intent, Kachika Hiraiki's heart was almost on the verge of collapse. How could he believe Unohana Retsu's promise and let go of Senju Makoto, the only person who could protect his life? Back off, get out of the way, or I'll kill Senju Makoto right away. Kachika Hiraiki yelled hysterically, the slightly trembling zanpakutō in his hand pressed tightly against Senju Makoto's neck, and the sharp blade clearly cut out blood marks one after another. Although Senju Makoto had been seriously injured many times in the all-ending space and recovered quickly, Unohana Retsu knew very well that it was Senju Makoto's zanpakutō ability. However, Senju Makoto's zanpakutō had just betrayed him, and theoretically he should still be unable to use his zanpakutō ability. Suddenly, Unohana Retsu's eyes trembled, and he forcibly suppressed the crazy murderous intent in his heart that was about to erupt like a volcano, and spoke in a low voice. Calm down, don't hurt Makoto, drop your zanpakutō, retreat, retreat. Hearing Kachika Hiraiki's request, Unohana Retsu's eyes trembled obviously. For Unohana Retsu, since he gained consciousness, he has never been forced to let go of his zanpakutō. Even when he was defeated by Minamoto Seireitei Shibukuni's extremely hot Bankai Zankodachi in the past, he never did. The original Kenpachi, the strongest Kenpachi, represents the strongest swordsman in Soul Society. And as a true swordsman, being forced to let go of his zanpakutō undoubtedly means complete defeat. For a moment, Unohana Retsu's eyes fluctuated unprecedentedly, and the handle of his zanpakutō tightened and loosened and tightened again. Senju Makoto watched Unohana Retsu's emotional fluctuations, especially when he felt that Unohana Retsu's grip on the handle of his zanpakutō began to relax completely. At this moment, Senju Makoto understood the decision that Unohana Retsu was about to make. Loosening the hilt that a swordsman must never loosen. Witnessing this scene, the feeling of being cherished and cared for by Unohana teacher made Senju Makoto's heart very touched. I can't let Unohana teacher be so embarrassed. Senju Makoto's eyes condensed, and he made a decision in his heart. Although, in terms of the situation on the surface, Unohana Retsu was forced to retreat, after Kachika Hiraiki kidnapped Senju Makoto and left, Senju Makoto killed Kachika Hiraiki and returned to the Seireitei, which was undoubtedly the best choice. In this way, Senju Makoto does not need to expose any ability, and can perfectly solve the remaining hidden dangers. However, Senju Makoto did not expect that Unohana teacher, who had been strictly ordered to stay away from the front line, would take the initiative to come to the world to find him, and he did not expect that Unohana teacher, as a swordsman, would be willing to loosen the knife for him. Senju Makoto treated Unohana Retsu with tenderness from the bottom of his heart, and did not allow Unohana Retsu to fall into such a dilemma. The only thing that worried Makoto Senju was not the severity of the injury from having his throat pierced, but that if Kachika Hiraiki cut his neck off, would he still be able to survive? If that ability, which was close to immortality, was exposed, would it lead to some unexpected treatment from Unohana teacher? However, despite this, Makoto Senju still mentally prepared to assist by having his neck completely cut off by Kachika Hiraiki, and to perform a wave of separate actions. However, just as Makoto Senju raised his hand to prepare for resistance, a large amount of white substance suddenly burst out from the finger-sized wound on Kachika Hiraiki's chest. Ah! Kachika Hiraiki seemed to suffer from pain far beyond his consciousness, and wailed miserably, even unconsciously raising the zanpakutō in his hand against Makoto Senju's neck a little. At that moment, Unohana Retsu's figure crossed with Kachika Hiraiki, and the blade that burst out seemed to flash dozens of times, and Kachika Hiraiki's movement also completely stopped in place. The next moment, as Unohana sheathed his sword, a large number of bloodstains suddenly appeared on Kachika Hibiki's body, and the whole person instantly disintegrated into a large number of scattered blood clots. Senju Makotao. Finally, when Senju Makotao saw the pile of flesh on the ground, even Senju Makotao, who had the best understanding of spirits in Soul Society, felt that he would not be able to help Kachika Hibiki reassemble it without spending 10 days or half a month. Suddenly, a familiar foot appeared in front of Senju Makotao, and then kicked the pile of flesh far away. Senju Makotao. This time, it seemed that it really couldn't be reassembled. The next moment, as Unohana knelt directly in front of Senju Makotao, a gentle and elegant beautiful face appeared in front of him. "Makotao, it's okay," Unohana said gently, and at the same time, one hand was shining with green Uedale light and pressed on Senju Makotao's still bleeding neck. Senju Makotao was slightly startled. He had never expected that Unohana-sensei would break away from the fighting so quickly. Recalling the terrifying killing state of Unohana before, Senju Makotao looked at the gentle Unohana in front of him and had not even recovered. Unohana-sensei, Senju Makotao's mouth trembled. Feeling the gentle eyes of Unohana, he inexplicably felt a sense of shyness and guilt. He unconsciously turned away and said, "Yes, I'm sorry, teacher, I have caused you trouble this time." "What nonsense are you talking about? Makotao, you still owe me a promise to accompany you for more than 100 years. How can I allow others to take Makotao away?" "Teacher." At the same time, on a tall building in the distance, Aiden Sosek, whose death suit was much more damaged, looked at Senju Makotao from a distance, and put away the Horyoku that had just caused Kachika Hibiki to become hollow. Finally, Aiden Sosek glanced at the scattered parts of Kachika Hibiki, and with a slight smile on his face, he spoke to Ichimura Jin behind him. "Jin, is it okay to collect Kachika Hibiki?" Chapter 224 Collecting Parts. Although the process was somewhat unexpected to Makotao Senju, the Masked Corps, Aiden Sosek and Unohana were all involved, and even Kachika Hibiki had materialized a large number of Masked Corps zanpakutō, but they were still chopped into pieces. That scene allowed Makotao Senju to see with his own eyes how amazing Unohana posture was when he was really killing. This made Makotao Senju, who was actually pretending to be injured, always feel guilty when facing Unohana. However, Kachika Hibiki was dead, the materialized Muramasa was killed, and the other materialized zanpakutō disappeared along with Muramasa. Makotao Senju was not worried that they would leak any secrets. Dead people will not open their mouths easily. In addition, Makotao Senju's zanpakutō, Senra rebelled, which was also verified by Byakuya Kachika. Under normal circumstances, if the zanpakutō soul rebels and materializes under the influence of Muramasa's ability, it will cause the Shinigami to temporarily be unable to use their zanpakutō abilities. Therefore, Unohana had no doubt about the severity of Senju Makotao's injuries. He treated Senju Makotao with unusual tenderness and treated all his injuries personally. Afterwards, the death gods who came to the present world to search for Kachika Hibiki gathered, and many friends who were familiar with Senju Makotao came forward to care about Senju Makotao's condition. Kachika Byakuya, Soifong, Madarami Ikaku, Iasco Yamachika, Uomida Nozomi, etc. Especially Uomida Nozomi, who was so excited that tears flowed, as if he saw his own mother being saved. And it was from Uomida Nozomi that Senju Makotao learned about the tragic defeat of the Masked Corps. From the perspective described by Uomida Nozomi, it is suspected that the Masked Corps and Kachika Hibiki have a cooperative relationship. Therefore, the Masked Corps assisted Kachika Hibiki in besieging the 5th Division Vice Captain Sosafrazen and the 3rd Seat Jin Ichimura, blocking the Gotti 13th Division from searching for Kachika Hibiki. Fortunately, Aiden Sosek mastered the Bankai of zanpakutō at an emergency moment, and through a large range of water mist refraction interference ability, the Masked Corps fell into a fight, thus barely delaying enough time to support the rescue of the other captains. Afterwards, Kachika Hibiki's zanpakutō Muramasa activated his ability to seize the zanpakutō sword soul of the Masked Corps, causing the Masked Corps to be completely defeated. In the end, it was the appearance of Uehara Kisuke and Shifen Yuan Yorishi that forcibly rescued the members of the Masked Corps. Of course, when mentioning Shifen Yuan Yorishi, Uomida Nozomi did not forget to express his loyalty to Shifen Yuan Yorishi in front of Senju Makotao, as if he regretted that Shifen Yuan Yorishi did not leave with him. Listening to Omita Nozomi's description, Senju Makatao immediately understood that the zanpakutō Kyukuswijutsu might have covered part of the truth with illusions, which caused the Gotti 13th Division to have cognitive biases in many details. At least, the Masked Corps and Kachika Hibaiki cannot have a cooperative relationship. Perhaps Kagami Swijutsu created some false dialogues in it, so that the Gotti 13th Division felt this serious. And Aizen Sosab took advantage of this incident to show that he had mastered Bankai. And he stepped on the siege of the former captain Hirako Makatao. I'm afraid that Aizen Sosab will be promoted to captain soon. Senju Makatao thought silently in his heart, and he couldn't help but recall the hollow substance that emerged from the wound on Kachika Hibaiki's chest at the end. Is Aizen Sosab trying to help me? Or is it a pure coincidence? Or is it some plan of Aizen Sosab? Thinking of this, Senju Makatao stood up and looked at Unohana Retsu, who was giving emergency treatment to the other injured Shinigami not far away, and then walked towards the scattered direction of Kachika Hibaiki's parts in his memory. Soon, Jin Ichimure's still young figure appeared in front of Makatao Senju, and he seemed to be holding a broom to clean up the scattered parts. Since the spirits of the Shinigami who have mastered Bankai have undergone qualitative changes, they cannot be decomposed into normal spirit particles after death, so the Seireitei will hold a special soul burial ceremony for the Shinigami who have mastered Bankai. Therefore, as the third seat of the rescue team, it is not abrupt for Jin Ichimura to clean up the battlefield personally. Jin, Makatao Senju said. Jin Ichimura turned his back to Makatao Senju and turned around, revealing an expression like a fox and a venomous snake, squinting his eyes and speaking. Hey, isn't this the vice-captain of the fourth team? It seems that he is not dead. That's great. It must be said that Jin Ichimura's improvement in acting is amazingly fast. This contains a yin and yang tone, which makes it impossible to tell what he really thinks, but the faint malice in his words reveals his regret that Makatao Senju's not killed. However, the bracelet tied to Jin Ichimura's wrist made Makatao Senju very clear of Jin Ichimura's true thoughts. Jin probably just wanted to prevent Aizen Sosab from noticing the slightest flaw, so even though he cared deeply about Makatao Senju, he could only express it in this malicious way. However, at this moment, Makatao Senju knew that Aizen Sosab was not nearby based on the spirit child left in his zanpakutō Kyukuswijutsu. Jin, Rangiku also tried to find you after you left. I ran into her in Rukongai some time ago, and I have already settled her down. Makatao Senju said gently. Now she lives in the 1st district of Rukongai South. If you miss her, you can go and see her when you pass by sometimes. Suddenly, Jin Ichimura's expression was obviously stiff for a moment, and the bracelet hidden in his sleeve turned a little hurriedly. However, the next moment, Jin Ichimura showed an expression of disapproval on the surface and said, Oh? Thank you so much, Makatao-kun. If you hadn't mentioned it, I would have almost forgotten about Rangiku. Makatao Senju smiled, then leaned over and picked up a part nearby, carefully observing the spirit in the part. In an instant, Makatao Senju's eyes, which were hidden behind his eyes, condensed obscurely. The process of the spirit body that originally belonged to the god of death is still continuing. Sure enough, what is the purpose of Aizen Sosab specifically asking Ichimura Jin to collect the parts of Kachika Hibaiki's part, and Ichimura Jin also spoke obscurely to remind Makatao Senju, stabbing Aizen Sosab in the back and said, Makatao-kun, can you give me the things in your hand? This is the task assigned to me by Vice Captain Aizen. Makatao-kun doesn't want me to be embarrassed by Vice Captain Aizen, right? Okay. Makatao Senju responded, and while hesitating, he secretly controlled a seed of forest to merge into the part in his hand, and then handed the part to Ichimura Jin. Thank you, Makatao-kun. Ichimura Jin smiled, but ignored Senju Makatao and continued to be busy. Chapter 225. Mirror Image and Reality. Aizen, what is this dangerous man planning to do? Senju Makatao said secretly in his heart. However, Senju Makatao also knew that Aizen Sosab was just like his zanpakutō Kyukuswijutsu. The more you stare at him, the more you will be confused by the illusion he creates on the surface. For Aizen Sosab, the real danger is hidden behind Kyukuswijutsu, not Kyukuswijutsu itself. I hope that I can capture his true self a little bit by laying some hidden hands. Senju Makatao hoped so, and then dragged his body that seemed to have not fully recovered on the surface to assist Unohana Retsu in treating the injured Shinigami. After all, in addition to Kachika Hibaiki and the Masked Corps, the entire Karakura town was also attracted by Aizen Sosab to a large number of Killian. Perhaps for the captain-level Shinigami, Killian's danger is minimal. But for humans and ordinary Shinigami, Killian represents indescribable despair and power. Therefore, in the process of cleaning up Killian, a considerable number of Shinigami were injured, and part of Karakura town was inevitably destroyed. As this incident came to an end, the Shinigami returned to Soul Society one after another. Soon, Aiden Sosok, who had mastered Bankai, was promoted to captain of the 5th Division without any surprise, and Ichimura Jin also served as vice-captain of the 5th Division. After the Zanpakutō rebellion, it seemed that Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni once again deeply felt the shortage of combat power in the GOTY 13 Division. Therefore, in the continuous extraordinary promotion, strong men who mastered Bankai emerged one after another in the Seireitei, and were directly added to the vacant captain position in the GOTY 13 Division. The new captain of the 7th Division, Komamura Sejin. The new captain of the 9th Division, Tosen Kaname. The new captain of the 12th Division and director of the Technology Development Bureau, Mayuri Kurasuchi. For a time, within a few months, the GOTY 13th Division added 4 captains, including Aiden Sosok. In addition, after experiencing the second blow from Kachika Hibiki, the armless Kachika Sojin also officially resigned as the vice-captain, and Kachika Byakuya took over as the vice-captain of the 6th Division. And those names that were quite familiar to Makoto Senju did not have any impact on Makoto Senju's life. After experiencing the Zanpakutō rebellion incident, Makoto Senju moved back to the Unohana courtyard to live, and this time he lived openly in the residence next to Unohana Retsu, which was the master's room. And it seems that after Makoto Senju was kidnapped and almost lost his disciples, Unohana Retsu's attitude towards Makoto Senju has changed slightly. For example, the care shown to Senju Makoto was more obvious, and some small details of Senju Makoto were indulged a lot. Gradually, this also made Senju Makoto's somewhat unbridled heart more unbridled, and even Senju Makoto began to work from home and handle team affairs directly in the courtyard. Nowadays, Senju Makoto still treats patients on weekdays, but he no longer needs to sit in the office to deal with the noble women who harass him one after another as before. Instead, the relatively difficult diseases are reported by various departments, and Senju Makoto freely selects patients with relatively high spiritual pressure from them to be personally responsible. Therefore, this also significantly improves the efficiency of Senju Makoto's integration into the Forest Seed, and it is no longer limited to the 13th Division of the GOTY, but gradually includes the Central 46th Office, nobles of all levels, and the Kidmashu, etc. Now, the only obstacle that prevents Senju Makoto from fully planting the Seireitei and blooming both inside and outside is the fixed daily production efficiency of the Forest Seed. For this reason, Senju Makoto had to give up some of the relatively less fertile land and try his best to integrate the seeds of the forest into the goal of relatively high spiritual pressure. One day, Senju Makoto was reviewing the team documents of the 4th Division in the courtyard, and suddenly felt a little tired. Generally, is it too leisurely? I'm not used to it for a while, Senju Makoto sighed and decided to leave the rest of the work to Kotetsuya and Yokiriza, and then make tea by himself. The clear tea tasted sweet and smooth. This is the top-grade tea unique to the Kachika family. After the new tea was brewed, Kachika Byakuya sent someone to deliver a full pound of it to Senju Makoto. These teas are not worth much, but they're only circulated among the nobles and will never flow into the market. Senju Makoto took a sip of tea and exhaled lightly, feeling refreshed. Then, Senju Makoto's eyes turned unintentionally and looked at the pool of hot springs that were emitting hot water. Suddenly, Senju Makoto couldn't help but recall the comfortable feeling of the last hot spring bath. Although he was interrupted by Shifu Yuan Yorishi who turned into a black cat, the feeling of dilation of the pores all over his body undoubtedly made Senju Makoto reminisce. It's just a pity that no one has used this hot spring specially built by Senju Makoto so far. Unohana teacher may be too shy to use it, and Senju Makoto is afraid of being killed by Unohana Retsu and floating in the hot spring, so he dare not use it. It's just that today Unohana Retsu happened to be attending the banquet to welcome the new captains, not in the courtyard, and the banquet probably won't end in a short time. This can't help but make Senju Makoto's mind completely active. Well, soak for a while, this is all for Unohana teacher, help Unohana teacher experience whether the water temperature is suitable. Thinking so, Senju Makoto pushed the team affairs documents that were still placed in front of him aside without hesitation, returned to the room to change the bath towel, and then placed the tea set and snacks beside the hot spring. Afterwards, Makoto Senju didn't worry about any unrelated existence intruding into the Unohana courtyard, so he just soaked in the hot spring. A wave of warmth enveloped his whole body, and all the pores on his body quickly opened up. Makatao Senju leaned his head against the edge of the hot spring and let out a comfortable cry. The only thing that made Makatao Senju feel a little regretful was that such a large hot spring pool should be able to accommodate 2 people, but Makatao Senju was the only one soaking in it, which was undoubtedly a bit of a waste. I wonder if the space will seem a bit crowded if teacher Unohana takes a bath with me. Makatao Senju studied this issue that could have a profound impact on the future direction of the Seireitei, and he was so absorbed in it that he seemed to really hear a gentle voice ringing in his ears in a trance. P.S. I'm stuck, and the 3rd update will be updated a little later. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.